Waiting for my camera? Well, that does not look very good. It's like I guess that's not. I was expecting a much better reveal than that. Holy cow! It looks like I am completely like I don't know what's going on. Let's see if I can make this better.
Whoa, I hear like
There's the
all
wood
of-
grain.
There we
all
go.
of
That
fire-
works. That works. That's better. Waiting for my camera? Oh, that does not look very good. Well, now I hear myself. All right. Hi, everybody. How's it
Howdy.
going? Sorry for that
It's
little
going.
awkward start there.
That's okay.
All right. So I'm back home, and this time we brought Steve with us. Steve has an excellent channel, RetroTech. I just got done visiting Steve on the way down and back from Florida, and he repaired 2 of my PVMs. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it, guys. Good to see you again. I already saw some questions about my coffee mug. This is definitely 100% coffee tonight. I'm an old man, and I wake up really early in the morning, so I get to bed usually pretty late, or I mean early, and don't stay up late. So I had to have some coffee tonight to stay up.
I'm not sure if that's mine making those like notification noises or not. I have no idea if it's me. Oh, I did hear a donation. I don't have donations like showing up on this layout.
Oh, this current
Whoops.
layout.
Let's see if I can fix that real quick. I apologize.
But I do see we got $2 from Pixel Phoenix.
Well, thank you.
Right there in the YouTube chat saying, "So happy Steve is finally joining us." Hey, Steve.
Hang on.
Well, hey, thanks for the super chat there. Yeah, I don't know. This might be a problem with my my thing running through my setup. I'm not sure. Like I said, that because every time I do hear a ding like that, I didn't know if it was coming through on mine or if it's coming through on everybody's.
Okay, so that is yours making a little ding there, right? There's a message coming through. It goes, "Bring
There is beeps like that, but I don't. I turned the. I don't know how.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We'll be just fine.
We're already getting a bunch back to back. Two from Vanessa area saying, "Happy you had a safe trip. Welcome back."
Yeah, it feels good. It was a long drive. And it's funny because my stopping at Steve's was the first thing I did on the way down, and then was the last thing I did on the way back. And I didn't realize that he was in a different time zone than me. So I was like, "Oh, I'll be there like by 5:30 or something like that." And then wasn't it? I mean, you were an hour behind me, so
Yeah. Well, I can never tell where people are coming from or where they're talking about, so I'm always like, you send me a message when you're like 20 minutes away, and then you're like, I'm like, 20 minutes away.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, great. And
Yeah.
I was like, all right. But yeah, no, that actually went pretty well. You know, you had enough time to leave them with me to, I mean, I had more than enough time to get everything done on both of them.
Yeah. It was cool because you were sending me these constant updates as you were doing it.
Yeah, that's one of the nice things about technology, I guess, to be able to just send pictures of it as it's going. But see, then you got to worry sometimes too, because maybe if like I don't send you pictures then for a couple of days, you're like, uh-oh, did something happen?
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, you knew you had a week, but you got everything done. So you want to go into exactly what you ended up doing for me?
Yeah, it was about 2 days worth of work. First, there was a 20L5 that you have, and then a 14L5, which I have example of that right here behind me too.
Mhm.
So that, but they both were kind of dirty, and so first things I always just clean both of them up, and then to get into service them, there's a deflection board that's pretty easy to get to that needs some checking out, and it's on both of those models, same thing. And then there's the main board that has a couple of spots to check out, and it's just kind of preventive maintenance at this point because there's not really anything wrong with either of these boards. So that was mostly about cleaning and making sure everything was still looking good. and inspections kind of deal and tests. But then, we went through and replaced a couple capacitors on some of those boards. And then the bigger job was going back and actually on the 14L5, I did a tube swap on it where I changed the tube that you had in there had screen burn in it. Slight screen burn. It wasn't terrible, but it did have a slight screen burn. So I was recently able to source a bunch of 14-inch, not a bunch, but 3 14-inch CRT tubes. So thankfully, it was the same tube between that 14L5 and about 4 other models of BVMs. They share the same tube, so we were able to swap that in real easy. And then the last thing we did on the 20L5 was there was a screen scratch.
Right.
So I was able to get in there and remove the anti-glare layer, and the screen scratch is gone. And so that was pretty much it. I did film just about everything on it.
Mhm.
So we'll have I'll have some episodes coming up, and then within the next couple weeks, showing a lot of that stuff. I think people will be more interested in the tube swap video too, because that's not something that I get to do a lot of. And it was really, really convenient because the actual BVM, which was the BVM A series, which if you don't have the analog input cards for it, it's practically just a fancy HD CRT, or it's really great for parts.
Mhm.
So that one swapped right in there, and the actual yoke that was attached to the CRT, it matches the chassis for the 14L5. So I didn't even have to change the yoke. And it was all pretty much, the convergence was almost set near perfect, just a little bit of adjustment. So just got all that done, calibrated them and put them back together, and that was pretty much it.
Not bad. I mean, I haven't had a lot of time to really spend with them. One thing I have noticed right off the bat is that the 20L5 no longer whines like it was.
Yeah.
Your
No.
20L5 had a pretty prominent whine to
Yeah,
it.
and it would go away after maybe 20 minutes or so, but it doesn't whine at all now, which is kind of nice.
Well, I definitely need to get mine done sometime because, as I've said before, every once in a while, not often, but every once in a while, it just boom, it just comes back on while it's already on. It just resets itself.
I figured out the secret to it. It's this stuff right here. It's premium dielectric grease. So what happens is under your flyback, inside the monitor, under the flyback, which is the very scary spot, nobody wants to touch. Under there, it's dry, and over years, there is this lubricant in there, and it keeps that crackling and that boom a little bit down. So that's, applying a new layer of this is always part of the restoration stuff too. I do little things. Part of the maintenance thing, it's like getting, an oil change. You do little things here, and that's one of them. That actually prevents a lot of that noise and arc from happening. It catches in that jelly, and it keeps that anode cap nice and likes to last longer.
Just catches it right in the jelly.
Yeah.
we have a ton of donations.
Yeah, I need to catch up on donations. Why don't you go ahead and start playing Shadow Dancer, and I'll catch up.
All right, let me.
I see a while back, right after Vanessaria, we got $3 Canadian from Greg, who uses lingo I'm not familiar with because I'm not with it, but he says SIMP for scan lines, whatever that means. Scan lines are
simp.
Yeah. Is that a word that people use these days? I don't know.
Yeah, but it's don't worry about it.
And $2 from Samuel Goatshaw saying PVM and chill. That's exactly what we're doing. We're
a little Shadow Dancer mixed in there.
We're PVMing all over this screen.
Oof. I was thinking about doing just like an off-screen camera feed, but it was too much to.
Yeah, that'd be a
I feel
bit.
like the game is only running at 30 frames per second. I don't know why this keeps on happening, but it looks like it.
Didn't you figure out like you were able to fix it in the middle of the stream last time, weren't you?
Yeah, maybe if I turn
Like,
off.
didn't you like disable? I think you disabled your capture device and then re-enabled it or something.
Yeah, let's see if that helps. Well, no, it still doesn't look like it. Whatever. It is what it is.
Aaron Welsh donated $5 and said, in this episode, Steve walks try through recapping a PVM 2030. Well, I don't think I'm going to be taking on that task myself anytime soon. But if people noticed in Analog Frontiers Part 2, there was footage of Steve recapping a PVM 20 M2 MDU at Matt Lisi's house, which really was primarily shot for our long promised CRT geometry episode, which yes, that officially means that is kind of in production. Don't know when we'll actually turn it into something, but I did want to at least wait until Analog Frontiers Part 2 got out because I wanted to kind of debut that footage for Analog Frontiers Part 2. Man, it was, I had, when we interviewed Jose back in, September or October 2018, it was like kind of a spur of the moment thing, and we did not have time to like actually get him working on anything. I had a little bit of footage from Bob, but I really kind of needed some more like working inside a CRT, recapping a CRT type footage. And so that was very fortunate timing and is like probably the last fun thing that any of us did any distance from our house.
Yeah. I mean, we were joking that night about how like we thought, whether things were actually going to be serious or,
we were talking about it. Was so interesting too because we were staying at Matt's house and Matt is both a doctor that works in a hospital and manufactures electronics at factories in China. And we were talking to him about like how has this like affected like
this is how you
being able to make Carbies and your Genesis and Super Nintendo SCART cables and stuff like that. So I mean we were staying with like the exact right person to get kind of an interesting perspective on this thing that like we had no idea how it was going to impact us yet. So but yeah, I still got some catching up to do too. There was $2 from Patton Thompson. Thank you. Saying Steve's CRT calibration and repair videos are awesome.
Thanks, Pat.
I mean, you really do, I think, provide like a tremendously valuable resource out there for people because I mean, you're, obviously, showing off your own CRT repair talents, but you're providing people really direct experience that you have with like random little things that you might not find in even find in a service manual or something, just like, oh, here's this little thing and when I in this particular model there's this and that you might need to be aware of and here's little tips and tricks I've figured out, so I mean it's absolutely invaluable for anyone that wants to get into doing that stuff themselves.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it's still a learning curve for me. I learn new things about that's what I kind of get excited because even though it's all kind of still CRTs where they're kind of all similar technology, so they're similarly made in most parts, but they all have their own little different things about them, and it keeps them interesting, trying to work through problems on different ones. And the reason that I started to make videos to try to get people to do just some things, to not be so worried on some things that they could do, because I feel like a lot of times, especially if you own like an M series or something like that that has a service menu, you can get in there and make safe adjustments, and not even have to worry about opening your CRT. And really anybody that can get through a service menu can do that. But if you want to go the next level and like check out some other things inside and try to really tweak the image, that's really got me going years ago on trying to make the CRTs look the best they could in the first place. And but yeah, just like I was thinking today, I was like, even in my best years, I might work on like this year I was thinking I might get through 80 CRTs, like repaired, serviced. And that sounds like a lot, right? But if I even do that for just 10 years, that's 800 CRTs. That's, if you think about a grand scheme of CRTs, that's not, that's only like
not that many, but it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot of your time.
Well, it's a lot of my time, but it's not like, so if I'm doing it, that means somebody else has to be doing it too, kind of, like that's why like, it was good to try to share a lot of this knowledge with other people, because there's no way I could fix everybody's CRT.
Yeah, it's not like sharing your knowledge is like taking away like any business for you.
No, it's actually just more helpful, really.
And it's also increasing awareness in general, so that can help
throwing away.
Well.
That's really. I mean, because CRTs are really hazardous. They're considered hazardous by the EPA to just throw out. Like,
well, something that you said, I think it was in that interview that, as I've said before, we did that interview like last minute before you left my house, and I was like, I was just like so out of sorts that I could totally forgot to hit record on the audio recorder, and I hate it because it was such a good interview. But you said, something to the effect of, the greenest thing you can actually do with a CRT is to keep it in service.
Yes.
Which is a cool approach to take to thinking about that, I think.
Yeah, and I always thought too, for me growing up playing games like this, Shadow Dancer, I mean, you grow up when you were playing it, and you never thought of a flat screen. They didn't exist. It was always on a CRT. So to me, that was always part of, watching it and enjoying even the playback now is being able to play it on these machines. And I kind of thought it would be sad to one day just think, oh, well, what if there's like, in my lifetime, what if there are no CRTs? I was watching a lot of these people would sell them on eBay or you'd see horror stories about people getting bad shipping.
Right. I mean, you do Patreon posts about bad shipping stuff all the time.
Yeah, and I've done my share of bad shipping and had been involved, so take it from personal experience. I mean, it's cost me money a lot sometimes, but I just figure it's part of the lessons.
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons you're such a great spokesperson for CRTs is because you've learned the ropes yourself on all this stuff, like in relatively recent years. Like, I mean, which just goes to show that like anyone can learn to do it, When I say anyone, I'm excluding myself because but anyone who does have that technical, like hands-on proclivity and handiness with tools, like, this could be up your alley.
Yeah, like if you like to change your own oil or something like that, work on your own car a little bit, or you're tinkerer.
Yeah.
That's what I kind of say, if you're into like working on your own stuff around. I mean, like I work on everything in my house. Like my washing machine and dryer, like they should have been 100 times ago, and I just like constantly replacing little parts in them to keep them alive. And it's just something that's like, I know that I got that from my grandfather, who was a big time junk collector and like flipping junk, and would just teach me the ropes of like yard sale. And how to turn $1 into $5 and things like that. It was just funny just thinking about it. But he, just like going through that, I think that the CRT was a perfect. I'm really lucky that there was not. It's just something there was kind of a need to in the time. a lot of the people who work on this, you know, we're talking like the best guy that's worked on this is Save on Pat, and he's in his 80s,
Yeah.
and we're just all basically lucky and fortunate to have any time for him still to be around, like, you know, even service and anything. Like, I told Coury that I personally, I email him questions and order parts, random parts from him.
And he's the guy, like, generally tends to kind of keep to himself.
Yeah, and he will, and it's funny because
I know he still has a net zero email address.
Yeah, he does. And so here's the best way to do it if you want to get Pat to talk to you. And this is a secret, so I don't know if I should tell, but oh well. He's on the West Coast, and again, he's in his 80s. So I always just say, hey, I've got a question about whatever monitor. Can you just call me when you're available? And then I send him my number, and he'll actually call you.
Yeah.
And talk to you. And but see, like, I'll talk to him, and he's always like, you know, I gotta go. I gotta get off the phone. I'm like, so, what about this and this and this? Because whenever I try to get in, whenever I get to talk to him, I just try to soak in anything. Because I know that once that knowledge is gone from him, our access to any of it is going to be extremely limited. Like, so there's something that a lot of people don't know about, like Sony. So Sony had, for these PVMs and BVMs and other CRTs that were the high-end ones, it had tons of service bulletins where it was like a hardware update. So something.
I think you told me about this. Like, they would say, like, oh, actually, the value of capacitor or resistor that we put on this board, it'd be better if you used this one instead, right?
Yeah, or it would start to fail and you'd see problems, and then they would send out literally a service bulletin, and it would just say, to fix, change this and this on this board with these two parts, and it would give you the parts. And so there are literally, I think someone told me, over 2,000 of those bulletins for just Sony CRTs. So I know probably Pat has copies of those, but like, there's no way that we're going to ever get those from Sony, you know?
Right.
And we'll never see that paperwork. If, you know, sometimes I get sent a couple of them. I've been sent like 3 of them, and I hold on to them. They're amazing because they are, like, there's a big fault with that M series, and one of the bulletins, gets into it. And if you literally just let the fault go, eventually it will blow out a couple of regulators and your flyback, and will like basically blow out your monitor. And it's just because 2 capacitors they're next to a hot spot, and they get really hot and they wear out, and then it just causes extra stress.
So that's like an M2 series, right?
Yes, exactly. It is the M2.
Well, I'll have to get you to work on. I've got a couple of them, so I'll have to get you to work on those eventually.
Yeah, thankfully that's pretty easy. It's just 2 caps. That's all. But it's, it literally comes down to just stuff like that. And see, if you don't know that, it's really impossible, to figure out with just going in and looking at it, because there's literally like 200 capacitors inside of a Sony M2.
Yeah.
So the other 198 control other things.
I'm still way behind on donations. We had $4.99 from Smooth Mercenary. So My Life in Gaming and RetroTech videos are the sole reason I got into CRT gaming, and I'm so happy I did. Thank you guys for all the hard work you guys do. The sole reason.
Man.
And to think we started making RGB videos without even knowing about PVM.
Yeah.
I always say, like, I am so amazed that we have been as accepted by the RGB and tech communities as we have been, because we had every opportunity to make ourselves look like fools early on. And we've also got $2 from Sony File saying, "I bless the Trantrons down in Africa." I don't know if that means he is the steward of PVMs in Africa and fixes them up, or he just wonders about how many are there as an untapped resource.
It's a song.
Okay. It's a song. See, I'm not with it, you guys. I'm not with it. I can't understand all of your pop culture and all your pop culture references and your lingo.
Just use my ninja magic. Just use my super ninja magic. I was not gonna do it, but I may as well.
Drama here.
Hold on. I'm still
there was
still working here.
There was one from Roast the Blood for $1. Thank you, saying finally at last a CRT calibration video. Now we never have to bring it up again. I mean, it's that is something
enough calibration videos to cover for everybody.
Yes.
You know, I mean, I can't tell you how many calibration. Like I've almost made a calibration video on every.
Yeah.
PVM and PVM.
But we promised one ourselves, like
5 years ago or something.
Yeah, so we still got to do it, no matter how many great resources. I mean, when Coury first discovered your channel, like, and he started saying, like, you know, hey, look, if you really want to do something with it now, like, go to this channel, and you know, you can go see RetroTech. You know, it was great videos over there. There was also $2 from Jonathan G saying, "Steve gave me the courage to start recapping." The courage. Steve out here handing out liquid courage. And $2 from Warren Hokie saying, "Is there any consumer CRT that beats a Trinitron?" You know, I mean, I've got to be completely honest. Like, you know, it's kind of funny. Sometimes there'll be comments saying, like, "Oh, you guys use Toshibas. Like, is there a reason you don't use Sony Trinitrons for your consumer CRTs?" It's like, yeah, I don't got one.
I saw that coming.
You know, I mean, I don't
need one.
I mean, I don't know if I've seen. To be honest, I don't know if I've seen like what a consumer, like a good consumer Sony looks like. At least, you know, in relatively recent years when I, you know, was into like looking at CRTs. Really, like I'm sure back in the day I saw plenty of Sony CRTs, but like I don't know enough about them to really compare. Like I just know PVMs, and you know, my good consumer just happens to be a Toshiba, but I have no reason other than I have it. You know, I don't have a Sony. I just don't. You know, I'd love to, but
there's a couple of other nice brands besides Sony's on the consumer level, and I think that is just because there still are, you know, like I look still constantly for in my area on Facebook for consumer CRTs, even just to see what's out there.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, JVC has some really good brands, and I would say any JVC, the last series that they made was called the D series, and it actually, the model numbers begin with the letter A. So
jeez, that's a tough little part there.
Anyway, so the D series ones were their best CRTs, but they had ones before that called, like, I think they were called L Arts or something like that. Those were a good brand of JVCs. And then probably, like you say, the Toshibas, those also are awesome. Just top, like, really high quality.
I remember when you were here and you were looking around in my Toshiba service menu. Yeah, you were saying that, like, oh, like this has a lot of options that I was not expecting to find in here for a consumer.
Yeah, it really does have some good, you know, geometry controls. And I've got one that's the model before yours, where they've got the still has the curved glass, and it doesn't have the it does not have the flat glass at all. So it's still got a bubble. And
I would love that, but
jeez, this part is really tough.
Art, yeah, I can't remember what it was called. I've never actually seen. Nathan Andrews are cool. It's called the iArt that JVC is. But there's still
Jeez.
other. I got a really fun CRT that's a Zenith that's that I got locally. It's a 13-inch, and it has it's just a consumer CRT, but it's translucent green. And and I've never seen one of those. It looks awesome. Like you can see everything inside of it. So it's like the prison TVs that were clear.
Yeah. Except it's the fantastic prison
Yeah,
TV.
it's like they took that in the 90s. Okay, well, we're going to take not only the prison, but the kids. So they're like, that's what I was reading, because they had to be clear for prisons. So this was really a marketing thing. They made clear green ones and clear blue ones.
This is the difficulty spike level.
I've not seen, those are the two I've seen. So I'm really happy I got one of those. I want to RGB mod it. And it's, it'll be coming up sometime soon. And I've still got your Commodore, which I'm about coming up soon too.
Oh, nice.
It's been
that, you know, when you and I were just like messing around with it, like I don't think I'd ever plugged my NES into it before, and like I was like, composite looks weirdly good on this.
Yeah, composite looks. See, that's the thing. Some CRTs composite looks incredible on, and those were been as high end as you would have gotten, you know, for a monitor at your house.
At least that one guy still
back in the day.
Yeah, and
jeez.
And you know, you were looking at the manufacture date on it, and you're like, oh, this is like 2 months older than I am. So I mean, these are old monitors, but they can still look real nice. There was $20 from Nathan Scorput, saying loving the great content from both channels.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Sorry it took so long to get to it. I saw it pop up.
Well, we're just having good conversation.
Exactly.
I'm catching up as I can.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure people want to just hear us talk anyway. So then there was $5 from Mitch B saying, "Thank you, Steve, for helping me configure my 2030. Down the line, I'd love to get it worked on so it lasts another 20-ish years."
Yeah, we've been talking about the 30 series. I've got a bunch of 30s. I actually got a bunch of 25 30s, which this is to my left, and it's in the same 30 family as the 2030, and then the 3230, which is behind me, which doesn't look right now, so it's not turned on. But yeah, that's one of my favorite monitors. It's a lot of fun to work on, and but it's a tricky one. But it's definitely, you know, who really loves that monitor are all the modern art museums.
Oh yeah.
And they like, I know that when I get those put together for them, and then there are still people in video production that use them for video, you know, for set design.
Mm-hmm.
And they love that monitor too. So those are really good. And even though they're not the sharpest picture, but I like them a lot. They got the 20-inch, which is actually, it's funny. Sony says the rest of their PVMs are 20 inches, but if you take a tape measure to the screen, actually 19 inches.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, I don't know why they're like
ones that's 20-inch tube, so it's got 20 inches. So it's actually 1 inch bigger than the others.
Oh, okay. Huh. There was also $2 Canadian from Stadium Arts. Thank you. Saying, any resources for calibrating consumer TVs?
Just
you know, I don't.
Some on RetroTech. I'm sure you've done a few on there.
A couple of Sonys, and then I've not done. I still got. So I mean, just so people know, before the end of this year, I do have to actually finish up this JVCD series that I started at the very beginning of the year. Now it's already September, and I never even did I just kind of, you know, recapped it and restored it. Never did the calibration video on it, so I haven't even done that yet. So that will be coming. So that'll be a JVC, and then the Toshiba I will do too, because I'm about to work on it. But other than the best thing I can recommend to anybody is go and Google your exact TV, and even if you have to pay $5 or $2,
buy
the service manual or your TV, and it will usually go into every adjustment that any kind of tech or person, would go through and make on the CRT. That's usually the best resource, and that's 95% of the knowledge that I got came from looking at those manuals and then just going out and tinkering with it on the monitor. So if you're looking at something that there's no documentation on, hey, get into it, get the service manual, and then even if you don't make videos or something, go post about it somewhere.
Yeah.
And places like Reddit, those archive posts, you can go back and Google something, you'll find it about a TV or whatever, and that's just kind of the way it'll have to go for now, because we're not. It was CRTs, they died out right around the time that the internet started taking off. Nobody cared about them, and then
yeah,
like a thing, even if you just consider it's a lot of us have been working on them for 4 or 5 years or hanging out and using them, or it's not even, it's not a huge thing where a lot of people still just didn't care for them for a long enough time.
Yeah.
I think
there was $5 from Dustin Kramer. Thank you. Asking, could a distro amp introduce power into the signal and create arcing in the tube? I've had 2 Panasonic monitors start arcing YPB PR signal from DA. I assume DA means distro amp.
Any kind of, I don't know, you kind of have to kind of see what your power source that you're plugging into. If you're having troubles with something, the best thing I can say is try it on different outlets, see if that's affecting your even sometimes power supplies on things can get goofy over time. So it could be something internally in the power supplies on the monitors, but a lot of times arcing is coming from the flyback. So it's one of those things that there's not really a good way to fix it. It's your CRT generally arcs because there's a problem with the ground. So maybe if there's something obvious that you can see, or it's not grounded, or there's a broken solder joint around your flyback. But otherwise, there might be a crack in the flybacks, so you can look at it and see if there's a crack. But I would definitely do that while it's turned off, That's where the high voltage is basically coming from, is that thing. So what happens is generally the arcs will come from that flyback because somehow the electricity is getting out through the plastic on that flyback, and it's hitting the metal frame generally, and it'll you could sometimes even see it where it'll make a little electric zap, like a line of electricity grounding itself out throughout the ground of the monitor itself. So without being able to replace the flyback, if you do see a small enough crack and it still works, you can honestly go and get some high quality proper silicone and seal it. And I actually have some. So if you do have a crack there, you can get something like this. It's called Black RTV, 100% silicone, sealant, and adhesive. This one's by JB Weld. This stuff is actually used by auto mechanics most of the time to make like gaskets in engines, but it works good in high heat and high temperature. And it's safe around electronics. That's what I'd recommend if you find something.
Is that what you were talking about for securing my Commodore monitor in the frame, since the tube is kind of loose in there, or was that something else?
That's similar. That's a soft silicone. So what for that we'd actually need a hard
Union
epoxy.
Lizard,
and it's so
that's right. It was an epoxy you were talking about. I remember now.
Epoxy, yeah, and then I'll show. So that'll be fun because I don't think I've made a video doing that. I'm not sure, but that's a big problem with CRTs now. Is the plastic on them? Some of them is so brittle, and so the bezels are a pain too. They get broken in shipping a lot.
Yeah.
But if you can keep all those pieces from the bezel, and even if even if it's like a 3D jigsaw puzzle, you can use that epoxy and piece it all back together. And the epoxy that JB Weld makes is so strong that it will hold the CRT tube in place fine. And
that's great.
because you can't really, I mean, until I don't know. Do you remember the guy at the conference named Rourke, who did
Oh yeah.
who does the Game Boy shells and the castings? He said one day he hopes to get a big enough casting so that maybe we could work on making a bezel, casting it, like, because the bezel is pretty much the same on the monitors. It's a generic Sony bezel for a lot of them. They just have different button layouts on it. So that way, a lot of we could get some bezels back out there, and I'm sure that also he could do some cool things. I thought be cool. I thought to have like translucent bezels and stuff on your PVM.
Yeah.
I mean, really a whole new idea here for modification and customizing.
There was $4.99 from Sean Quinn saying, "Are aperture grill CRTs always better than other types of CRTs? Is there a certain type of shadow mask one that is closest in terms of quality?" I mean, I feel like better is not really the term to use. I mean, I guess you could say one seems to be higher fidelity, but there's I think a nostalgic sort of look to all types of CRTs.
Yeah, so the Shadow Mask CRT was around first. That was the first one, the curve every way. And it was actually round and like way back in the 20s. The CRT dates back to actually 1800s. Surprisingly, it's a very old technology. But as it progressed, it wasn't until Sony made the Trinitron way later in the basically in the beginning of the color TV era in the late 60s. So anything before that was always the Shadow Mask technology. And so it wasn't until then. So at that point, everything that made was Shadow Mask up to that point. So other than Sony, so there was plenty of households that grew up, and I've talked to plenty of people, and they prefer that Shadow Mask, curved every side look over the Sonys because they grew up, like you said, around it.
Yeah.
And if you like that look, then yeah, you're gonna love it on those Shadow Masks.
Come on.
And you can prefer that over a Sony. I don't feel like if you compare a really high end. So Ikegami is a brand of monitor that makes an extremely high-end Shadow Mask tube. And so if you compare those with BVMs, they're very comparable with quality. They were high-end commercial monitors. So, if you sit those next to each other, it really does come down to a thing of personal preference. What do you like better? It's like when flat screens came out and it's like, well, do you like plasma or LCD? It's like, it's kind of deal almost.
Yeah, and it's also kind of like, a lot of people, are like, there's a lot of people out there that are like scan line deniers. Like, scan lines don't exist. That's just a myth. It's like, well, actually, they kind of do. It's just that some TVs you can see them more obviously than others,
Yeah.
Scan lines are always there.
But it's just the kind of TV you grew up with, might be your image of what a CRT is, or maybe you've come to love another type of CRT that's different from the kind you grew up with. I mean, I grew up with some pretty crappy CRTs. There was I was almost caught up. The couple more came. There was $5 from For the Love of the Game saying, "Steve, do you have any interest in CRT donations? I have some weird pro monitors that don't work right, and I don't care to fix them."
Oh yeah. I mean, I always work on donations, and as long as there's somewhat, I don't have a ton of room. And but I definitely do. So if you want to, yeah, if you want to reach out to me, um, you can definitely reach out to me and let me know what you got. I definitely do take donations though, and especially too, if somebody ends up with something. I have a lot of people that'll end up with parts from things, and you would be surprised how many times I can save an entire monitor just based on some little part that's not produced anywhere anymore. And I had a situation like that last week, which is the next video I've got coming out next week, is about a PVM that had a secondary fuse that just weird. So I would have literally had to rebuild it into either a modern type fuse, but thankfully I had a circuit board here that was in a trash heap pile that was just left over, donated, and I was able to get the part right off it. So even stuff that's broken, because there's a lot of stuff that's where we're going to run out of these like flybacks and tubes. So that's going to be the real problem.
And I guess if you think prices are bad now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, of course, the economy's going crazy. So I don't know. Did you see, speaking of prices, one quick second, did you see that crazy auction?
I saw the one you linked in your Patreon, like the $1,200 for, or $1,700 for like a 13-inch or something.
It was a 14 M4U. Okay, so that's it's 800 line, and it's only doing, it's 13 inches screen, and it only does 240p and 480i. Okay, but it does do component RGB, and it's a very nice monitor.
I think I have one. I think
a very nice monitor, but only 13 inches.
Well, I mean, but still, yeah. I mean, even the ones like that I've restored have never gone for that much. It's just crazy that that one was advertised as being still in its original box. So I'm guessing. Oh wow. I don't know whether that one was actually real. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, there's people paying like $14,000 from Super Mario in its original box right now.
So somebody's got money, and I mean, I sometimes I get contact with people that want stuff, and I can't even get it for them.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I kind of got off there on a second, but I thought that was kind of wild. That, yeah, once all this stuff, that's the thing. This is just like anything else. They're not making any more of these CRTs.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I would.
I doubt that in our lifetime there will ever be like a mass-produced, high-quality CRT again, right? Yeah. I mean, you think if Sony put all its eggs into these BVMs in the early 2000s, and they were charging film studios $40,000 for a monitor, and $10,000 for parts and service. So we'll never get to the point where they're putting that much of an investment into the technology. Yeah.
It'll never be as good. There was $2 from Sony File saying, "Does anyone remember their childhood CRTs?"
I do.
I remember them. I wish I still had them. It kills me that I don't even know what happened to. My parents had
little dog. It's like a little white Sandy there.
My parents' TV was like the one that I could sometimes hook up my NES and Super Nintendo to it on the weekends. It was the 19-inch. The big TV was the 19-inch. It was nothing special. It was, I want to say Magnavox, or I've got a.
But there was something about it, Like I remember, like the big one for me was like a 25-inch was like immensely huge. But I didn't mean to interrupt your story. You can keep on going.
Well, it's funny. I've got, for whatever reason, back when I lived in Tennessee, I was very young when when my parents moved to Tennessee, and you know, you can see like some sort of toddler like toy, you know, like one of those like things that you're in the middle of and you walk around on the floor. There's a photo that's just like of the TV on the stand, and you can see like the bookshelf next to it and that toddler thing next to it. And I've no like, why would that picture exist? I don't know why it exists, but it's so cool because I actually have it framed and in my wood panel room upstairs. Well, not framed. It's not framed. It's just in like one of those like little acrylic, you know, slide the photo in stands. But still, I think it's appropriate that I have a photo of my family's childhood CRT. But what I had, my dad, you know, before he met my mom, he had this little 13-inch Curtis Mathis color TV that he got, you know, I believe late 70s. You know, he was kind of a lot of projects that, you know, had him moving around a fair bit. So it was good for him to have a relatively small TV that was easy to move around. And that TV was in my room, you know, when I was very young. And that was what I played games on, you know, all the way up to, you know, at some point, after I got my Super Nintendo, I was still playing games on that little TV, and I have no real recollection of like how good or bad it was, but I wish I had it. I wish I had it.
Mine was a 13-inch Magnavox that after about a year and a half of having it, it wouldn't turn on consistently. It would just go pew, pew, pew. And it was like it was trying to turn on, so you'd have to keep on hitting the button over and over again until eventually it came on. But it goes pew, pew.
You know, that TV that I was talking about, you know, the quote unquote the big TV. My dad eventually got, you know, a slightly bigger TV, not much bigger.
Shoot.
And
why am I having such a hard time with this level? I don't even understand.
He gave the old one because it was not in such good. The picture wasn't such good quality anymore, but a friend was interested in it, so he gave it to my friend. And because my friend, he had his game set up in the basement at his house, but you know, he wanted a second TV so he could watch TV or watch movies while playing games. And I've told this story before, but I'll never forget one time going over there, and the TV had continued to degrade so much that we were playing 1080 snowboarding, and like you could barely see where you were going in the snow. The picture was so dim that you could barely play 1080 on it. It was rough.
Like, so I mean, I had tons of just like you guys. I mean, when we were growing up, there really, that was a funny thing. I think there were a lot of just mediocre middle grade CRTs that nobody really cared that much about. They just got it, or they went for the really nice ones if they were into it. TV, you know. So like the first time I can remember getting a really nice TV was of any significance, wasn't even mine. It was when I moved away to college after high school, and I moved in, and I literally, like, I picked a guy, and I went to followed him to Western Kentucky University for my roommate. He was a buddy of mine from around here, and he was like his parents were filthy rich. So, and I was completely the opposite. Like, I had nothing, no money, nothing. Like, put up and stuff. So I was, but he. So I was like, oh man, he always got all the coolest things, like everything new, like
guys here.
PlayStation. And so we got to school, and I mean, he got his mom to buy us. They showed up in this new in box 27-inch flat screen KV Trinitron. Was the first year. It was 2001. So that component, and I mean, we stuck a PlayStation 2 in that thing, and like, it was running nonstop. Like the whole dorm was basically in the room.
Ninjas.
It was such an amazing setup. So that was the first one I can remember where it was actually like a nice CRT.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
rest of it just like mostly, wood grain stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of lucked out getting that Toshiba because, when I got that HD CRT, which, in retrospect wasn't necessarily the smartest thing, but, hey. I saved up, working at the library on campus. I saved up all year. I was like, I'm going to buy that HD CRT because, like, at that time, like, obviously I didn't have nostalgia for CRTs because they were still kind of the main thing, but I knew that LCDs were like not really there yet. Like I wanted those CRT black levels was the thing that I wanted, and so I I got that, but that was like, it was at my parents' house. It was too big to bring to college. My first 3 years in college, I just, hooked up a S-Video to VGA scaler box, to play games on my CRT computer monitor. So I, played PS2, GameCube and stuff. But then the last year in college, I had a much better rooming setup where, my roommate that I'd been with all that way through college, we were able to get an on-campus apartment that was just us. And we didn't really get along with like any of the other people that we were rooming with. So we like never really used the common areas all that much. Mostly, just played games in my room with, on that monitor. But that last year, we actually had a common area that we wanted to use. And so I got that, I don't even think it was very expensive. I got that Toshiba, 24-inch Toshiba for my senior year in college. And, I feel like that was a very lucky thing to have done because it's a great TV to have now.
Oh yeah, it's a great one. Do you remember too? At that time when I just remember that when like flat screens were first coming out, how incredibly expensive they were, and they weren't necessarily that great yet.
Now, now by flat screen, you're talking about like LCDs, not like flat CRTs.
I'm talking early flat screen display, as in like any screen TV. Non-CRT technology when it was.
I guess plasmas were pretty nice, but
they were, but still, the first plasmas were, goodness, thousands upon thousands of dollars.
Yeah. But then, like, once LCDs started coming along, like, it was obvious that like LCDs were, they were going to get good, but like I just was not satisfied with the black levels, so that's why I went for the HD CRT. Even though, like I say, I've since learned that like, it wasn't really the ideal thing for the types of games I was playing on it, to be honest. But there was $5 Canadian from Cyanice. Thank you. Saying, what are your guys' thoughts on using composite or S-Video on CRT instead of RGB to get a more authentic experience? I'm all for that, honestly. For like my main consoles, I either want to be using RGB or component on a PVM or an HDMI mod on, the appropriate TV. I do, the console I'm going to be mainly playing, but I very much enjoy.
I thought I was dead right there. Sorry.
I very much enjoy.
They're responding now.
S-Video every now and then. I in my new setup upstairs, I've used it greatly for Analog Frontier so far. I hooked up a ton of my extra systems just composite and S video just to get that more era appropriate look. And so I take huge advantage of that. And I think there's definitely something to be said. I mean, I have an appreciation for the aesthetic of all of, those different signal qualities, and just like came up before, the aperture grill versus the shadow mask, like it's just a different look. It has a different texture, and I appreciate that texture, on all of them. So even though I'm actually pretty easygoing on that, it's probably crazy that I've put so much money and effort into, the high end quality, but something just drives me to go for that quality. Even though I enjoy, I enjoy both the high end and the low end.
Yeah. Here's something. These are all actually on an S video loop here. These screens. So
okay.
It's simpler, obviously, to use S video sometimes if you're using a big setup, but there is some advantages to even using S video and composite, because these old CRTs have comb filters, other screen filtering things on them that you can actually do to make screens look really, really great, and improved sharpness. Because if you remember, a lot of those buttons and knobs, once you plug in an RGB source, they do nothing.
That's true.
So you just get whatever comes out of that RGB, that's what you're getting. Whereas if you're using composite, S video, and even component, you can use the other things like gain and phase and whatever else is. I'm looking on here like chroma, and you can use those things to adjust your picture and increase certain colors, even just for a temporary time. That's really a great thing about it,
Yeah,
and also,
that's a good point.
I missed the extra life up there. Room final boss. Sorry.
Wait, really? Final boss?
Yeah, I remember not being that hard too. So let's see if I can do this.
So wait, you've beaten this game before?
Yeah.
See, like,
you're like afraid of it, right?
I've been super afraid of it. I mean, you've died a bunch. Does this game have infinite continues or something?
No, it only has 3 continues, but it's not very hard. I don't remember.
I think it seems kind of hard because like it's a.
I'm gonna get a game over, but I feel like I'll be able to beat it.
But you've died so many times.
Only
though,
on
like,
this final level I have, really. I don't remember how to.
So there's only 5 worlds in this? Yeah. Huh. There was also $3 from Ajax2112. Thank you. Saying any difference between these are model numbers that I'm sure Steve is familiar with, but I'm not. A PVM 1953 ST and a PVM 1953 MD.
Okay, so yeah, there's almost zero difference between those two monitors from a retro gaming and a use perspective. The ST most likely is white in color, just like the MD would be, which they're pretty much medical use monitors. The ST might have been something in like a lab or in a microscope back in the late 90s, mid to late 90s probably, but there's not really any difference as far as use or the 53 ST is a great monitor. It's just like all the internals are just the same as the 53 MD. I'm not really for certain why Sony chose all the different names and alphabets behind each model that they did. I think that ST may even have the dual inputs
there it is.
for and RGB, just like the MD. And so, as far as we're concerned, if they're both the same looking, they're practically the same monitor.
Yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of my like my 13-inch PVMs that I've got. Like, I don't know what the model number is on those. Like, I really only know the model numbers on my 20-inchers. Like, I feel like one of them might be a 19 something, but I can't. For some reason, I just have this mental block against learning some of what I have. I just can't remember. There is also $5 from Clinton Bowman. Thank you. Saying, loving the channel. I'm glad that I found this channel last year and started my journey into RGB quality gaming. Well, don't forget to check out Steve over at RetroTech as well.
We also had a $2 from Jonathan Hinson. Thank you. He says, daily use of my CRT TVs and classic hi-fi components has convinced me that most modern consumer electronics feel designed for efficiency rather than quality. What changed? Well,
that's a big right there, isn't it? That's like what caused everything to get shifted over. It's kind of like it's an interesting thing where the CRTs were not all the CRTs, but they're kind of like this last part of the last era of technology where there still was a consideration for maintenance.
yes.
And now
Now it's just
everything
replacement.
is like now it's replacement, and you literally have companies on newer products that are fighting small-time repair businesses, like Apple, for example, fighting people that want to fix Apple products, and not letting them get tools or whatever, so they have to go to Congress and fight for right to repair. So what's changed is big companies have gotten used, and consumers have gotten used to too, kind of this idea of nothing lasting a long time. We're talking about machines we're using that are from the 80s and 90s and maybe early 2000s. So at the youngest, they're all 20 years old. So what from our modern technology right now that we have today is really going to be good 20 to 30 years from now?
Yeah,
right?
Well, it's so interesting because you think about people are spending $800,000 on a phone every
2 years.
2 to 3 years, and they don't even think about it. My phone brings me no joy. Like this is something I've been thinking about lately because Henry Clark, who I think is in the chat right now, he kind of an update on my internet situation. He was helping me pick some internet equipment this week because, as I've said before, I like the idea of renting my equipment from Spectrum. It keeps them accountable. They aren't going to be like, oh, you better call your modem manufacturer, you better call your router manufacturer. It's $5 a month on my bill to use their equipment. And Henry Clark is very smart about good internet equipment, and I'm like, all right, I mean, anything to make this work. Like, I just want it to work. So he looked on the list of modems that Spectrum allows you to use for my tier of service, and he recommended one and recommended a very nice Synology router. And like, it's going to take me 5 years of using that equipment before it's going to
But you should get. I mean,
before I'm going to be saving money.
Yeah.
So hopefully I'll be using it that long. But here's the thing. Here's what I'm thinking about. Like, obviously, so far everything is going great with my internet. I even did a stream test on the Backloggery on Friday night. Streamed for 6 hours with 0 frame drops. So things are looking positive. But the thing is, like, obviously it's worth it. Worth spending that money on that equipment if it's going to work and Spectrum's equipment is not. But owning that modem, owning that router, like, I'm not like, yes, it feels so good to buy that. It brings me no joy. But like video game consoles, like, that is a unique box that is going to play unique games in a unique way that, like, every single game console I own, like, has a purpose and a use, and it was just as cool and useful 30, 20 years ago as it is today, and will be 20, 30 years in the future. I'm not going to look back at this modem and be like, that was a good. That was a good one, you know? Like, maybe it will still be the modem I use in 20 years.
I don't know. Speak for yourself. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that do.
But I don't feel passionate about that equipment. And the same thing with the phone. Like, I don't feel passionate about my phone. Like, I had a Gen 1 Google Pixel. I just shook my phone's light on. Flashlight on. I had a Gen 1 Google Pixel. Like, if the battery hadn't gone to crap, and, you know, Steve, you're talking about repairing, you know, you know, they seal the batteries in there. So you're not supposed to replace the batteries, you know? The battery goes, your phone goes, basically. But, you know, the thing is, like, I was not excited to get a new phone. The only reason I got a new phone was because my battery lasted like an hour. Yeah. You know, shoot. Like it had gotten that bad. Like otherwise I had no desire to get a new phone. But I have a desire to get new video game consoles. And I think that's where like the disconnect it comes for me, because, you know, you're talking about you know, CRTs or like kind of from that last generation of equipment that, you know, maybe seems like it was built to last. And when I think about people just like not blinking an eye at, you know, getting a new phone every couple of years for, you know, way more than a game console. And people, you know, I mean, it makes the $599 US on the PS3 seem like nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, your PS3, what else can play PS3 games? Nothing. Like your PS3 is still very useful today. Your $800 phone is probably not going to be very useful in 3 years. Like,
yeah, you said the battery won't work if you have it 3 years from now.
I know. So, I mean, obviously the PS3, you know, the early PS3s, you know, had the yellow line of death and whatever.
Great
but
statement to say everything nowadays isn't made quality, because there are stuff that's made quality and made serviced.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, it seems like, I mean, video game consoles, I think, you know, especially from Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft, I think are very well made.
Yeah.
You know, I do think those are going to last a very long time. You know, hopefully my OLED TV, I don't know, but it does seem like a lot of LCD TVs, you know, especially the less expensive ones. You know, I hear a lot of people, you know, our friend Drum just, his Vizio just like caught fire.
Just recently?
Yeah.
Like a couple of months ago, like it just started smoking.
Yeah,
so he had to get another. And I know Voltar has had several go bad. So I mean,
that's one thing I don't take. I've had so many people try to donate, like, you know, flat screen TVs that don't work to me. And I read about it. Most of the time, it's just like one circuit board in them needs replacing, because they're basically built to last a few years. The components internally, they all have like an Achilles heel, and a lot of times they will use low-end capacitors in them, you know? So they are literally like, there's parts of that power supply that are only going to last 5,000 hours of use.
And I don't know how long like the actual like liquid crystal aspects of it are really supposed to last either.
Good question.
You know, my dad had a you know a pretty nice 46-inch Sony LCD TV, and the HDMI ports went bad during a thunderstorm. They never worked again. So then he started, you know, hooking up his TV box and Blu-ray player with component, which he was happy with. But then eventually the whole TV just died, you know? And this was, I mean, it died, I don't know, about a year ago, I want to say, maybe a little more than a year ago, and he got that. I want to say 2010, maybe something like that, or no, it was probably like 2013, or no, it's probably 2000.
I have
Regardless, it did not last as long as you might hope it would have.
My in-laws buy Vizio TVs, and they some new issues seem to come up with them every 4 years, and that's what they do. They just come out, take the old one away, and put a new one out.
Because everyone gets them on the Black Friday,
Right. They're not gonna look. Not gonna look that great, right? They're not gonna. They're definitely gonna be lag.
But there's a lot of people that don't even care about that stuff.
Right.
If you get it, and that's like.
I mean, I've certainly seen some Vizio TVs that I thought looked, for the price, like a pretty good picture, but now I've been, after hearing, lately about so many that just have died, like I don't know, like my Samsung, my 46-inch Samsung that I got in 2012, I want to say at least 3 times it has the HDMI ports have stopped working after a power outage, and I would have to leave it off for several, like not only leave it off but unplug it for several hours. One time I even left it unplugged over a weekend just to get those HDMI ports to work again. I don't know. I was actually having trouble with it the other day after nothing happened. So I'm a little worried as it is how long that one's going to last. Probably could continue to work with a replace HDMI board, but again, like if I was to replace that, like to replace a 1080p TV, like it's not even worth the cost of fixing it.
Yeah.
Like because they're almost meant to be so disposable, which is sad. But
and really,
there was
that's solder.
There was go on.
Oh no, I'm sorry. It's fine. We're just finished up. I was just saying that there can also be bad solder joints that develop, like on the inputs for the HDMI. You get like a interruption in your circuit, and it will just, this picture will go out, or if it gets hot, the picture will go out or something, or come back. It's weird.
Yeah, there's my dad very much has a mentality of making it last, repair it if you can, stuff like that. He looked into getting that Sony repaired, but I mean it just wasn't worth it. There was 5 Australian dollars from Peter M saying $5 donation to hear Try say Wilson loud.
I saw that
loud
a few
enough?
made me laugh, and now thanks. I forgot, and now made me laugh again.
There was $1.99 from Gaming Blows. I'm falling behind again all of a sudden. I thought I was caught up.
Well, those technology rants will get you.
$1.99 from Game Blows. Bed, phone, and shoes. Always pay top dollar. Well, I mean,
I agree for the bed. You got to sleep on a bed every night, for sure.
That's very true. That's very true.
You get older, and you definitely need better sleep, right?
Phone though, I wouldn't pay top dollar. I mean, I got the Motorola phone, one of their current phones, because it had very high rating for battery life. One of the best, reviewed battery life of current phones, which was my main concern. And it was half the price of the top end phones. So I don't know if I agree with playing top dollar in that regard, because what am I doing with my phone that I need to pay $800,000 for? Nothing.
$800,000. You were saying 800 to 1,000.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Man, I'm falling behind. Where are we at? There was $2 from Dustin Kramer saying,
Thank
"What's
you.
the most you'll pay for PS5 on release?" I mean, like, I definitely intend to get. I mean, I would love to get both PS5 and Series X day one, but that's a lot of money, and I don't know if I can really justify it.
I mean,
right
there's like
now.
nothing I want on the Xbox.
I mean, I really want
more than anything. I wish they would just push it back to next year. I think that would make more people happy than people be upset.
Well, people are going to be upset whenever it releases because there's always growing pains with a new generation, you know. But, I mean, I'm very interested in the backwards compatibility aspect of the Xbox, but like I don't know for sure if this is what I'm going to do, but like I really would like to get at least one of them, unless there's just like zero reason to get a PS5.
Oh, shoot.
Like it kind of depends on when Ratchet and Clank is releasing, because I really want that. Hopefully it's a launch game, but if it's not, I don't know. Like I would definitely like to get at least one of them day one, and then save one of them to get next year. But you know, I'm kind of prepared for it to be like $500 if that's what it is. But you know, less would be nice.
Sick probably or something. So
yeah, it's not gonna be 6. It's not. There's no way it's gonna be 6.
I don't know. I feel like it's gonna be 6.
I don't think it's gonna be 6.
Well, see, where I live, there's almost 10% sales tax on it. So.
So it may as well be.
Yeah. It's $50. It's 500.
Yeah. I don't know. I just was thinking about though. I'm just like not all that excited at all, just because I feel like I have so much shooting at dead.
Yeah, but I mean, you know you're going to get it eventually anyway.
Yeah, I mean, Ratchet and Clank being there. If Ratchet and Clank was a launch game, that's basically the only thing that could convince me.
I mean, it's just I like participating in console launches. It's exciting to see, you know, the beginning of the generation. You know, I mean, I enjoy participating in it. You know, there was $4.99 from Sean Quinn saying, "Steve,
thank you.
Have you ever encountered any CRTs that were a part of the capacitor plague 10 years back? How bad were they?"
I saw that question. I really wasn't. I'm not 100% familiar with the capacitor plague of maybe.
Yeah, Sean mentioned this at some point before. Something I don't know if CRTs would have been affected necessarily, but I guess there was a lot of capacitors that were made in a certain time frame from some company that didn't know what they were doing, or they cloned another design, and a lot of those got out there that you know, just caused a lot of problems with various electronics.
Well, honestly, the funny thing about the ones that probably would have been affected by that time period, maybe that's the reason there are a lot of, because it's weird with Sony's even. There seem to be more issues with the last generation of them, CRTs, as far as consumer CRTs is concerned. The last generation has more problems than the earlier ones from the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. So maybe that is an issue there. But most of the time, again, when I'm working on those ones from that era, you know, like the really high-end ones, they always used, they weren't going to let any shady capacitor end up in there. I can tell that most of the time. And the really high-end ones, like, again, BVMs, all the BVMs from 1999 and on had the best capacitors you could get in each spot. And so, and especially too, like the L series, those L series, they rarely have problems with their capacitors, specifically because they use such good capacitors. But if you have the, you know, if there's definitely a lower end product, I'm sure they use that, and they're probably falling apart. There were some that were the 9-inch ones that were where the actual boards were manufactured at a different facility in Asia. But this was back in like the 80s and 90s. and they used a different solder mask, and their boards tend to break down a lot quicker. So I do know that happens with a lot of like the 8-inch PVMs that are from the 90s. But other than that, like design, most of the pro stuff doesn't really have a lot of the issues that probably the consumer stuff really did.
There was $5 from Craig Wan. Thank you. Saying, what are your thoughts on the reveal of Super Mario Brothers 35, as well as the games for Mario's 35th anniversary? Super Mario Brothers 35 it appears to run at a square pixel aspect ratio. So no shimmering, but too skinny.
Oh, okay. I don't even. What even is it? I did not see the Super Mario Brothers 35. What is it?
It's like the.
It's not the Game & Watch thing, is it?
No, it's like the Battle Royale version of Super Mario Brothers.
I did not even see that. I missed it
where
completely.
There's 35 players playing the game at once, and then I guess like things that you do can send. It very much like in a competitive puzzle game, like you send junk blocks to the other players. Well, in this, Koopa Troopas or Buzzy Beetles or Spinies or whatever fall into your game. So that's kind of interesting. But here's the weird thing: much like
Blue Guys,
Super Mario 3D All Stars, it's like only available until March. I think it comes out in October and is only available till March. And it's super weird. The Game & Watch, like I'm sure everyone who watches our show noticed, like that trailer,
man. That is like,
it's hard to say if it's directly representative of the scaling in the game or how they capture that, but it is Shimmer City and there's screen tearing. Like, oh my gosh. It's bad. It's bad. Part of me feels like I might kind of need to get one though, because I would eventually like to do, a video on all the ways to play, classic Mario games. That might be one that I should have. I think I heard it was only $50, but Super Mario 3D All Stars.
Let's do this.
I'm equally happy and disappointed that Mario 64 is as basic looking as it is. Like, I would have loved a much more extensive remastering job visually, but I was always nervous if they were like full on remaking the game, they would screw up the mechanics. Because the mechanics of that game are, have a very specific feel, and if it wouldn't be the same game if they changed them. But I can't shake this feeling. I was thinking about the other day, like, I'm sure that the collection is going to be fine and all. Obviously, it's disappointing that Galaxy 2 isn't there. But I feel like it does a disservice to the Mario All-Stars name, because the original Super Mario All-Stars were complete visual overhauls. 16-bit overhauls, beautiful 16-bit. Mario 1 looks a little weird in it, but Mario 2 and Mario 3 are beautiful overhauls, and this is kind of just the bare minimum.
Yeah.
So
a lot of people, I think there was discussion that 64 was going to be completely redone. That's what people thought before it was announced.
And obviously, we don't know to what extent any of these are emulated or recompiled.
Right.
We just don't know, and I don't know if we will know when they come out. It's hard to say if there will be enough evidence even right when they come out. But speaking of which, do you think it's okay to say what we're planning to do?
I think so, yeah.
So I spent this weekend, kind of doing as much as I could to
impromptu, I guess, like an impromptu decision.
Yeah, well, how we did the NES on Nintendo Switch video, and we got it out really close to when the NES on Nintendo Switch service launched. That was because we did as much as we could on the video about all the previous official ways to play NES games, to kind of, compare against Virtual Console and NES Classic and all these other services. We did all of the work ahead of time, everything that we could do while still waiting for the NES on Switch service to launch. And then once that launched, we did the rest in like a day or less than 2 days. So we're not sure if it's going to be a video on 64 Galaxy and Sunshine, or if it's just going to be 64, because like the 64 part is already pretty long. So we'll just see. But we're going to try to get that out like within a day or so of the game coming out.
Yeah.
Just to compare
crazy surprises.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of the plan. So I've had a lot of fun working on that, because obviously 64 is, one of the games I am most passionate about. Man, I was capturing some Super Mario 64 DS, from my 3DS with the capture card mod. And that, I'm sure a lot of people love that version of the game, but it just feels laborious to play to me. Just because, moving is so difficult, I think. I'm sure, a lot. I got 150 stars at it back in the day, but I just felt exhausted playing it. Like, just like it's sometimes hard to just jump on a Goomba. Like, it's difficult to control. Like, I was just so tired afterwards. I'm like, ugh. Like, I now I need to write about Mario 64 DS, but I was so tired. Like, I was like, I just want to play the N64 version. So I did, I just did I recorded a full playthrough of the N64 version because obviously we're going to need it for this video. I did a full playthrough on Ultra HDMI, and then I'll capture other material for other ways to capture it. Composite as video, RGB, OSSC, RetroTech, CRT, all that good stuff. I'll get that material as needed, or not as needed. I'll get it. But then I went back and wrote the section about the DS version. But yeah, so expect something from us shortly after the collection releases. Whether that something is just a Mario 64 video or all three of them remains to be seen.
Look at that.
Huh? You did it.
Yeah. With 15 lives or something like that.
Yeah. I can't. You did it like from the beginning in like 30 minutes. So obviously you're good at Shinobi. So there was $2 from Jonathan G saying, have you ever opened a sealed PVM BVM? I assume sealed. I don't know if sealed a word that we use when it comes to PVMs. I guess new in box.
Yes, and it kind of is sealed, because if you get one new in box, generally Sony used the very heavy duty staples on the box to close it. So like when you opened the box, you had to use almost a wire cutter to cut that little, it's like a giant staple,
Oh.
So, only reason I know this is because it's a funny thing. It's the tube I replaced in your 14L5 about a year ago, and I think we might have talked about this. I bought a tube that was advertised as brand new on eBay, and I got it, and it was in that box, and those staples were taken out of it. And I opened the box, and it wasn't brand new. It was someone had taken the brand new one and took their old one and put it in the brand new box, closed it.
No.
So I had to get in a big, get eBay involved, and the guy refused shipment, receiving the, thing. So it actually came back to me, and he never asked for it back. So I've still got it in the box that I packed it. I've not touched it.
Oh gosh.
I don't know whether it's any good or not, but I do know that. And so, but unfortunately, no. I've had a couple that have been like brought to me in the box. The one that we worked on, or that I worked on with you and Matt, his was in the original box when he got, but it wasn't. I don't know if it was brand new or sealed, but it might have been. And then I had another person that had gotten
look at that.
load.
Now it says Shadow Dancer 2 on the title screen. I don't know why.
Oh, is it like the hard loop?
I wonder.
You should check it and see if it's actually any harder. There was $5 from Jim Nardeshia saying, "Thanks, Steve, for helping me recap my PVM last year."
Awesome, Jim. Good to hear from you.
Let's just do
Hope it's still doing good.
I probably wrecked his name.
Jim helped me. I remember researching a lot of caps on one of his. He had a M series, and I think we went through, and actually it helped me change my cap kit. Added about 10 new caps to it after what he had found through his recapping. So good to hear he's still got it going.
And then there was 10 Swiss francs, I believe, from David Aaron.
Thank you.
Saying, good old David Aaron saying, "Trouble sleeping in Switzerland." Well, we'll try to dial it back and start being boring to help put you to sleep. One more and I'll be caught up. Will I actually get caught up? There was $5 from Fried Zombie 4 where the zombies ate my neighbor's avatar. Saying, "Any chance I or Steve can help can help me upgrade a Wega?" I've never known if it's Wega or Vega. Like I've always said Wega. Wega. KV36 FS210 to accept 480p via component. Is that a thing that's possible?
I mean, if you convert it to 480i or 240p, I mean, unfortunately, no, you're not gonna. I've never heard of anybody being able to do that, and where it could accept that digital signal straight from the board or something, you know.
I mean, I guess the closest really you'd get is if you hooked up, if you converted the console's output, from RGBS to RGB HV and connected to a VGA monitor. I mean, that's
yeah, you could if it's
the closest you're going to get.
But if that's a good point. And Bob from Retro RGB made a really good video about using cheaper CRT monitors in that way, like that you could still find that were computer monitors. And that's a good idea. I think that you're going to be better off trying to do that and getting a decent computer monitor than ever trying to figure out how to get
switching it up there
a Vega or
for the love of the game donated $2 saying it's Vega, and Mello gave me in the chat says, "I hear in Japan it's called the Sony Balrog." Which sounds pretty awesome, actually.
That would be good. That's better.
He switches his pattern up a little bit. Everybody's a little bit faster in Shadow Dancer 2, but for the most part, it feels like the same game. Levels are the same.
Well, now I feel like you should see if you can because then you could mark it complete on your back.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Maybe it's an infinite loop. Maybe it'll be number 3 after this.
Maybe it will. I mean,
that would be wild. Have you used any continues? I assume your continues are carrying over from.
No, it doesn't carry over. Round. It doesn't carry over lives or anything.
Dad have been asking about HD CRTs, and I know that you talked a little bit earlier, Try, about your experience with yours, and I think that the consensus is, for the most part, consumer grade HD CRTs are not really a good thing.
No, I mean, obviously
they do have their fans for sure, though. I mean, there's a lot of people that say, I was
a fan for a long time too, but I think I was also not that knowledgeable at the time,
Well, it's back then, it was the newest, greatest thing, so there's no way we would know that, that it
Right.
wasn't going to be perfect because, yeah, and then they could be incredible for HD content and stuff. Yeah, that's another good point.
I mean, obviously I think one area where they do excel is like 480p, or 480i, like, if you just really don't want to look at interlacing, it's de-interlaced on a CRT. So, I mean, that's pretty neat, but it's interesting because I feel like I kind of had a lot of side steps in my, journey to getting to where I am now on video quality and stuff, because, I grew up with, RF only CRTs, very poor quality. And when I got my, when I got a nice VGA computer monitor before going to college, I was like, man, what if I could play my games on this and I wouldn't need to have a TV at school? And so that's why I got that S video and composite to VGA box. And even though it probably introduced lag that, I wasn't even thinking about at the time, that was my first exposure to S video. And it, to me, even though maybe it wasn't handling everything exactly properly, but still to play on that higher end monitor with S video to my eyes was this big jump. And obviously I wasn't like getting scan lines and stuff like that, but like I couldn't really see scan lines on my TV anyway. And then I saved up for that HD CRT. I got that, and of course there's no scan lines on that. But again, like I didn't know, I just didn't know about that at the time. So I stayed within the CRT realm for so long, but I also, like, when I was finally using good connections, I was not in that 15 kilohertz environment anymore. So I didn't really get the appreciation that I've developed much more recently for like PS2 games, interlaced PS2 games on a consumer CRT look really cool. Like, there's something about the way the interlacing works that almost makes like the geometry edges look really crisp. The jaggies don't seem so bad. It's really incredible. And so I was playing PS2 games for a long time, de-interlaced on that HD CRT, but I didn't understand what it was doing. But the thing I will say is, I mean, the color and black levels are incredible. I mean, they're excellent. I mean, probably better than basically any LCD TV out there, up until you get to OLED. But but none of them, I don't think there's any of them that handle 15 kilohertz content as true 15 kilohertz. And I think that, they need to be able to do that, for, to get that true 240p look, that true 480i look, and to work with light guns.
Yeah, those definitely don't work with light guns.
Yeah, that was one of the first things I noticed. I mean, this might sound absolutely crazy, but also like, of course Tri would do this. Like, the first thing I ever plugged into it was my NES and Super Mario Brothers. Like, I mean, I didn't have HD content. Like, in retrospect, like, the thing was like such a waste of money because like I didn't even have like anything that could take advantage of it. I did have, I immediately ordered from Nintendo the GameCube component cables, because I knew I could get 480p on it. So I guess it's not true to say that it was a waste because I was able to get 480p. But I'll admit, I do remember thinking like, 480p games don't look a lot different from the 480i games, and I don't understand why. It was because it was de-interlacing, but I didn't understand that. But, I didn't get a PS3 until 2008. And then I continued to play PS3 in HD with component cables on that TV for a number of years. But then, I'll be honest, when I got my first little 720p 32-inch LCD TV, main reason I got it is because I wanted to play Final Fantasy 11 on my TV, but I was unhappy with how connecting how my PC looked connected to the HD CRT, and I didn't want to play the PS2 version anymore, and I didn't have an Xbox 360, so I switched over to the PC version and got an LCD TV that I hooked up my computer to, and I hooked up my other systems to it. And when I was playing HD PS3 games on it, I thought the clarity of those PS3 games was so much more on that little LCD TV than on the HD CRT, because it has that fixed pixel grid. So I mean, it would be now though, when that TV's at my parents' house now, when I look at it now, I'm just like, oh my gosh, the motion blur on it is so bad. But like, I'm kind of curious now, like if I went back and played PS3 on HD CRT again, would I be like, oh yeah, actually that's pretty nice, because PS3 games are 720p, which is for the most part anyway, which, pretty low resolution, and you can see a lot of jaggies, and the anti-aliasing was not as refined as it is in games today. So I do wonder, maybe I would like going back and looking at PS3 on that. I need to look at PS3. I'm sure I've done it at some point, but it's been a long time. I need to look at PS3 on the 20L5.
Oh yeah, it'll look good on there.
Yes, I mean that's not something I've done really before either. But I guess I do have a setup that I could easily do it. I should.
Yeah, I could do it too. I've got PS3 and got my old fat PS3 set up in a situation where it can output to the VGA monitor, and it looks awesome. Like, especially if you have it set to 480p, just like the menus look so clean because they're 4:3 and fill that space so nicely.
It does look good as a 4:3 like that. One of the BVMs that I had been working on the last few months actually went to our friend Epos Fox.
Oh yeah.
And
cool.
And that's been what he's been loving PS3 on his, because it's it's the 4. So if you can get anything in 720p on a D24, I mean, that is unbelievable. Like, that's the dream, best thing you can pretty much do right there for that.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of his pictures on social media, and it just looks incredible. It's like way better than anything I've hooked up to him.
We got $5 from EB Chill 2 saying, it blows my mind that Turok on PS3 looks better to me on composite on my Sony CRT than HDMI. Take care, guys. Well, I mean, I can understand that to some extent, because I mean, some of those PS3 games, I mean, they felt high res at the time, but they definitely have a lot of low res jaggies and stuff. That I can see a CRT helping with. It looks like David Aaron has not fallen asleep, because he has 5 Swiss francs saying, my Amiga monitor is super crisp and has awesome colors, but the right upper corner is starting to go up. Do I need a recap? Are you talking about like when you say go up, like you're saying like it's like the geometry is tilting up, or are you talking like it's like getting that purple tint or something like that? Like, I don't know. Is there anything you can do about like the purple tint?
Yeah, so and I actually had a discussion with Coury about this, because my garage here has just an incredible magnetic field going on inside of it, so that certain CRTs, as you turn them, those corners will get pronounced colors. So really, it just has to do, unfortunately, with the magnetic field affecting that individual tube in that spot a lot of times, if it just shows up out of the blue. So first thing you have to try to do is degauss it, obviously. If it doesn't go away, then the next step is to try to basically just turn that screen um, 45 degrees and see if it goes away, and keep turning it till it goes away. And you might have to adjust your whole setup depending on that, or if there's something. Check the environment too to see if there's anything that's adding magnetism, as far as like a speaker or even like some kind of power outlet or power supply from something.
Can it happen if they just sit on their side, like the wrong direction for a long time?
And if they turn off and just sit turned off for years, you can turn them on and they can look wonky, and especially the colors. Now that's the purity. So that's mostly not a capacitor issue. It could be, but mostly the purity is going to be a magnetism issue. So you'll have to use some form of either getting rid of the magnetism or introducing more magnetism to try to correct it. And the way to do that would be go in behind the tube and add a little circular magnet to the tube and try to balance out some of that corner's magnetism. You could do that. And then there are some rings on the yoke that control purity. That's pretty advanced adjustment to do, but those are for purity. Now, if he has a problem where he's got a geometry issue,
yeah, I looked and he said that the geometry is kind of going up in the corner,
starting to show up. Like if it looked fine before and then it shows up, then yes, there's like a 99% chance that that's a capacitor. That's just fail. And especially if it's an Amiga, and it's most likely old. And it's never if it's never been recapped before, then I'd say yeah, that's definitely where you should start.
Yeah. I've seen you do in a video as well, like if something was like kind of out of sorts more towards a corner or to one side, you can use like you might be able to sort of manipulate the picture with like magnetic strips or something like that.
Yeah, there are convergence strips for the corners. If you can't get the actual the way you get the picture geometry set, it's using magnetism from that deflection coil on the back of the tube is producing the image. So you can go in between. There's a small area of space between the tube itself and that deflection yoke, and so in each corner you can go in and stick a strip with a tiny magnet on it, and it goes in between that area or space between the yoke and the tube, and then you can use that, and that will help manipulate a corner either for geometry or most likely if you have a corner where you see color separation in the 3 color guns, like where you can see a convergence problem. That's where you use those strips. But you can also use that if you're if you do have, that's more on like a consumer level where the geometry isn't as great. You can use those strips sometimes to help correct the geometry. Occasionally it will help.
Yeah, David, I don't know exactly where in Switzerland you are or even where in Germany this is, but I know that John Lenneman visited someone in Germany not that long ago that everyone calls the CRT wizard. So I'm sure you can find people. I'm sure there's several people through Europe that probably work on CRTs. There was $5 from Sony File saying, Steve, help, my 4PVM 8044Qs aren't seeing RGB21 or SCART proper anymore. The video shows, but it's either no white or green shaded. Well, it sounds to me like the green / Y inputs might be having an issue.
Well, he's probably those are the ones I was talking about earlier that have, those are the exact models that have the different boards that were made in a different factory. And so they often have trouble where solder joints develop. And so cold solder joints develop, and unfortunately you have to be able to solder to fix that most of the time. And so you just got to check around in there and see those 8-inch PVMs are built a lot like compacted, and they get really hot inside of them. And there's not a lot of space to disperse the heat out of there, so the caps go bad in them too, because the boards are literally all on top of each other. So most likely it's either caps, or it's going to be you'll have to go through and reflow solder. I actually have a video where I did that about a year ago, because I have a 841 that did the same thing. But that's what I would check.
There's $1.99 from Pepamonax. Pepamomax.
Pepamomax.
Like the Pepalagoo. Saying thank you for helping the retro gaming community. Well, thank you. And there was $4.99 from Retro Dream, who I do recall talking about a newly purchased 20L5, and he's saying having my first PVM experience right now.
Right now.
First PVM experience right now. Neo Geo Mr. Core on my newly purchased 20L5. The hype is real, my friends.
Heck yeah. I hope you're playing Shock Troopers.
Oh, man.
Or Neo Drift Out.
So good.
That was one of the recent consoles I got. I had a buddy here consoleize a Neo Geo for me.
You have a cabinet in your. You have a Neo Geo cabinet in your garage.
I got a full cabinet 4-slot, but I wanted to have the other one, and man, I tell you, if somebody had me service their 2950, and when I got it tuned up, I was playing Neo Geo on it, and it was incredible on that huge of a screen. So I kept 3230 working, and then I'll use it for a little bit on there. But that's a real fun console thing, having that.
Yeah, that's kind of my newest addition too, but I've only got 3 games.
Yeah, I've got about the same amount, and then I got one of those cheap 161 carts.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
I went and you can go in, and there are like a pretty decent version. Like there's different versions of it. So there's actually a couple decent versions of it now, and you can go in and like change the capacitors and make it all right. Whereas like there were versions of it that were actually like damaged.
Actually, I guess I technically have 4. Artemio helped me secure a copy of Shock Troopers Second Squad for a really nice price, but we're just holding off on getting it in my possession for now.
Well, that's what happened with me with Neo Drift Out, is I was able to got it off of a group on Facebook, and then it was right before everything got locked down, and it shipped out from Denmark, and it took like 2 months to get here because it just sat in Chicago for a month.
Yeah, I mean, I would rather wait for the proper time to get that in my possession. There's no rush on that. There was $2 from Jonathan G asking, what video would you like to see each other make? Well, I know I'd love to see my Commodore monitor in a video when you work on that.
Yeah, I was telling Steve that that's kind of the cool thing about the kind of content that he makes, is that every single video or every single piece of equipment he works on, he can make a video out of it, because you never know what you're going to run into each time.
Even if it's a model you've worked on before, like, there's good information you can drop in it.
It's like these 2530s, you could have 5 different videos on just different problems you have with each one. And it might that you could use that repair on a different monitor that has the same problem that's not even the same monitor. So, but yeah, no, I don't. I mean, I always watch all your guys' videos and blown away by sometimes like ones that I don't know that I'm like, well, maybe this one, it doesn't seem like the ones that I think are like maybe not as ones that I would be personally as much into, but then I actually end up enjoying those the most. Like episodes you did on those Game Boy screens, man.
Yeah, you were just watching that when I was dropping off the PVMs, and you're like, how does it get so close?
Oh, I love that camera lens you're using is incredible. But
well, what was funny about that too is since I was shooting,
you showed too how much trouble people like I've done those mods and I hate them because of what you said about how just
Mhm.
speck of dirt on there. It's like you open it 20 times, you can't get it out, and it's just so.
Yeah.
And, oh yeah, I mean, it was a great episode. That's just you know, I always like anything. You know, you guys, I would never pretend to tell you what to do.
A lot of people seem to appreciate my willingness to put my shoddy mod skills.
That's kind of my favorite part is when you're
That's
using those
great.
when they're using those big clippers. You're like, it's like way too big. It's like, don't watch it. I can't watch it.
my favorite thing is a lot of the sound effects I used in the episode came from Wario Land, and there's this one sound effect that I think is like the sound effects are kind of funny in that game. There's one sound effect that I think the file was just called, I think it was just called bump, and it's just like it's this kind of mushy, like not quite a farty sound, but just, and like when I was like cutting the plastic with the knife, it was just, I just kept going.
I think one of the things that people seem to appreciate about that is that you weren't. It was nice to see something that wasn't like perfect, and you're every time that you're doing something, you're like, this is not a guide, but I mean,
people, I was,
you're like out of your comfort zone with it.
Yeah, I was surprised how much fun people had with the comments, and they were like, so I followed this guide and I'm having trouble and nothing's coming on. Or, you know, some comments were just like, thanks for the guide, guys. I didn't expect people to latch on to that as much as they did, but it was fun. But you know, like I didn't care how bad I looked to the people who know what they're doing. I put that all out there so that people like look at that and think like, wow, he sucks at this. And you know what? I don't think I'd know how to do any better than he did. So maybe I shouldn't do this.
Yeah. I mean, I tried years ago to do Game Boy backlight mods, the very first ones, you know, that were out from Handheld Legend or something, and the DMG wasn't too bad, but then I was like, oh, I want a pocket, but I'd do that too, and I tried that, man, and I think I ruined 4 or 5 pockets.
Oof.
Just because I'd always do something and it'd end up with a big black line down the middle, and that, you know, trying to desolder that. That was before
pockets are kind of weird too, because I mean, I never noticed this back in the day, so I assume it's because of the age of it. And I don't know if it's fixable, but like if you work on the contrast dial on a Game Boy Pocket, if there is something in the scene that has like a higher concentration of dark pixels in a certain area, then you will see sort of this vertical ghost line come up from that column. And I don't know if it's fixable or not. But like, you know, I've seen videos of people doing like the backlight mods and, you know, the bivert and stuff like that. And I see them like, I'm not sure exactly which Game Boys. I don't know if all of them or what, but you know, there's like some where they're like peeling layers off of the screen. I'm just like, I could never do stuff like that. But now I'm kind of like, man, I kind of want to see what. I want just one old school backlight mod in my DMG now instead. But there was 20 pesos from Lunita Productions saying, thank you, saying I got a SD2 SNES. I hope it was worth getting it. Well, you know that that was actually a point I was going to bring up. You know, when we were talking about, you know, the perception of cost and how it's sometimes skewed on certain pieces of equipment. Like, it blows my mind that people are just like okay with spending nearly $1,000 on a phone every several years. Like that SD2 SNES, like that's going to be good for the rest of your life probably.
Yeah.
Like that's something I don't understand. Like when people look, it's a comment that we get on our videos all the time. They'll look at a flash cartridge, or they'll look at a mod, or some cable or HDMI adapter or something. It's like $130, or even some of the more expensive things, $300, $350,
Well, a lot of people can...
$400. It's like, don't get me wrong, that is a lot. That is a lot of money. But that thing is going to be something that is useful for a specific device that will be useful for a very long time.
Right.
And your phone is probably only going to be useful for 2 or 3 years. And you're spending 3 or 4 times the amount of money on that sometimes. So I feel like oftentimes that those comments must come from a place of either not putting much value into retro gaming, or not much value into the hardware aspect of it, which is fine. But I do think we're talking unique pieces of hardware, or we're talking hardware for these specific consoles. That I think it's worth it in a lot of cases. But like, I still don't have like a Mega SD or anything like that, because it is a lot of money. Even though I could get good use out of it, but I understand the value that it does offer. I'd rather spend $400 on a really nice flash cartridge than a phone. I mean, I have to have a phone, but I'd rather not have to spend that money.
Yeah, flash cartridges are good, and I mean, they do last a long time. I've had my SD to SNES for at least 5 years. It's been fine for me. Plus, it's a great way to get calibrate your CRTs too.
Yeah, I mean, you get a ton of use.
It's running right behind you right now.
Yeah.
No, I think that stuff is awesome, and that's extremely helpful for that, and it's it's extending the life of your console and your games, as opposed to opening them and getting them out and putting them back in the consoles. Just
Steve, what was the first CRT you ever repaired? Because I mean, you didn't go to school or anything, like learn any of this stuff. So it started out as mainly like a hobby.
Yeah. So my educational background, I graduated. It was engineering school, specifically actually for concrete. My degree is in concrete, where I was a specialist in that, and then I went and worked in that field for a few years, and went out west, and I came back. And so I always had some kind of, background with working on stuff, but it wasn't really till I got back. And I have 2 young kids. My oldest, though, he now is 9, and he got to the age of probably 3 or 4. He wanted to start playing video games again, and so the first thing I did was got N64, and I tried to hook it up to my flat screen, and looked how terrible it looked. I remember. So I went and got my family's Toshiba, which I've still got in my bedroom, the one I was talking about a little bit ago. It's a 32. So I never did any work on that, but then after that I started getting online, and I found Bob's page, Retro RGB, back in the first page he had, and he had that one maybe two pages on there about RGB monitors. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is the craziest thing ever. I just got to see what this is. So I went on eBay, and back then it was like they would go for, and I know this is probably going to make some people go crazy, but it was like they would go for $400 or less generally. And that was with shipping for a 20-inch. So I found a guy in Virginia who was just auctioning off tons of BVMs, and so he had a BVM, and I didn't really understand what it was, didn't know much about it, but I bid on it, and I got it for like $400 shipped to me. It shows up, and it's this darn BVM A series monitor that has a HD only card in it. So I'm like, oh my goodness, I bought this whole thing. I got this monitor here, and I can't even run an HDMI into it through converters. So I was really upset with myself by doing that, because then like I saw that the cards for it were impossible to get. So I pretty much just put that one on the back shelf, and after that I bought a PVM, which was a 1954 Q, and that one was awesome. I got that one off an auction on eBay again, and it was from a government waste company in Ohio, and they had somehow gotten it from NASA. So it had all these NASA metal plates inventories from NASA on it.
That's cool.
A friend of mine locally wanted it, so I sold it to him just because I can't keep all of them. And so that was the first one that actually got me into looking at it, because even though I got it and it had incredibly lower hours on it, it was shipped perfectly. I got extremely lucky on that one. I probably paid $200 for that one back in the day. So but that one got me understanding that finally I figured out that there was a service menu, and that's how I started adjusting that. And then I got that one tweaked out just using the service menu. And then I fell into a kind of honey hole situation where I started getting more monitors. And as I got more, I'd end up with like 5 or 6 that had serious problems that were obviously internal. So it took me years to just kind of work through, figure out what was going on, study the manuals. I mean, I even went back and went through these terribly boring. I took like community college level courses on basic electronics on YouTube. I just sat there and watched these guys talk about electronics to understand it. And then the first things I started servicing would have been game consoles. And then I moved to the CRTs after that. But yeah, that's the first one I got was that 1954Q. That's the one I started with and figured out how to do things, how to service it. And then also like I recapped it. And then after that, it's just like, that's what got me going down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out what's going on. I remember for the longest time, I didn't even understand how to properly discharge it. And so, like I had quite a few monitors for a while after I got my first big load that I just didn't even know how to discharge it. So back then, the only people you could talk to was people that were into arcade forums.
Right.
And they were working on CRTs, so you just had to take whatever they would give you, some information on how to service a CRT, because they're still doing it. So that was where a lot of the information came from, and a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of things that I realized back in the day that I didn't know how to fix that were extremely simple and could have fixed, but that's how it goes. So like I said, thankfully people still want to get theirs fixed,
Yeah. There was $5 from John Perry G saying, Steve, I have a Toshiba 27AF45. It has some geometry on the sides on older side scrollers. What do you think? And MLiG, are the HD Retrovision cables good? Yes, the HD Retrovision cables are perfect for a CRT like that. I think that's the same model Coury has for his Toshiba. I've got the 24-inch version of that, and like that's one of the best use cases for the HD Retrovision cables in my opinion. But
perfect.
Yeah, with side scrollers, you will see geometry issues. Especially on those CRTs that are flat, they tend to have more visible geometry issues. When I got my HD CRT, I noticed that as well. Like I noticed this like sort of ribbon effect across the screen. And I'm like, I never noticed this on like other CRTs. And what I kind of did, like it really bothered me at first. But what I did was I kind of almost retrained my eye to, rather than I'm like looking at the whole scene and I'm noticing the geometry wave. Now I like kind of my eye kind of goes from point to point. Like I'm looking at the sprites. Like it's difficult to explain, but like I kind of got into this way of looking at the game that like I don't notice geometry issues as readily as I used to. But I'll let Steve say whatever he knows to say about geometry on that model, because you did work on geometry on my 24-inch version of. I'm pretty sure it's the AF45.
I think so too. That's definitely everything you said there is completely. I mean, you're always going to have that issue on those flat screens for the most part. The good thing though that we talked about on yours, if you have the factory remote, it's quite simple to get in there. And I don't remember the exact button combination, but you just press a couple buttons to get in the service menu, and you may be able to just tweak a couple of those service line items in the pen geometry and make that, or the also there's like a linearity adjustment in there. You can try it and see if it'll actually look better by just going up 1 or 2 adjustments on there. Because I think that even with yours, there was just a tiny bit of adjustment we made on yours to try to make the screen look a little bit better. But I feel like it always just going to look somewhere, because the screen's trying to roll along something that's curved. You know, it's designed. The signal is. It's just going across something flat.
Yeah. So especially with those flat ones, I do think that's something to keep in mind. It's not going to be perfect, but you know, I feel like if you can make peace with it, then you just start to not notice it as much anymore. But certainly if you do have the means to launch the 240p test suite, I mean, that will be hugely helpful for you to adjust that geometry. But you found the information on how to open the service menu like really quickly on Google. When
you can literally, with the Toshibas, there's a couple, you can literally Google Toshiba CRT service menu, and it'll give you, just on the Google pop-up, a couple of different ways to try, and one of them works for every Toshiba if you have the regular remote.
Coury, I noticed that you're in some situations you're taking more than one hit. How did you get?
You don't take damage from touching enemies.
Oh,
and you can really use that to your advantage. The original Shinobi is like that too. It's easy to think that anything can kill you, but they'll knock you back if you touch them. As long as you're not getting hit with like a bullet or a sword.
Mm-hmm.
So for something like this, it's important to use that to your advantage.
Lunita Productions, who was talking about hoping the SC2 SNES was worth it with 20 more pesos, saying I still use my Mega EverDrive X5 for 3 years, and hey, I still use the old hand-me-down Mega EverDrive that Coury gave me. But it's just a bare basic one, but
although not for much longer. After I finish this episode, then you're getting the Mega EverDrive Pro.
Well, yes, that is true, but I wouldn't be surprised if I still use it, because Scott Davis also hooked me up with an X5 that he retired after getting a Mega SD, and I have made great use of having 2 EverDrives, just in it makes it a lot easier if I need to capture like composite and RGB from the same scene. I can bring it up on both systems,
right?
At the same time and stuff like that. So it's actually pretty helpful for making comparisons and stuff, because I've got one on one Genesis, one on the other Genesis, so down here, I've got my my Mega SG, so I'll probably end up I'll probably mostly use it with that for Sega CD on the Mega SG. So there is uses for more than one flash cart in our world anyway.
I'll
for
grab
the average person, it'd be pretty
last
stupid.
Half hour. I'll grab something else off the shelf.
Let's see, there were a couple of others. Let me scroll down. Oh, was Rears to Bloods? I'll have to get Coury when he comes back to look up that one because I don't think that was in the super chat. We've got the usual Ben Brody. I have to work up my vocal cords to do a Ben Brody donation. No, that was not quite right. It's getting Sandy excited here. $2, but you have to say it like Wario. What was that about, Sandy? What was that? Did that get you out of your comfortable spot? Coury, there was a donation from Rears to Blood, but I don't think it was in the super chat.
Right. It says for $1. Thank you. Saying are these good CRTs? I got a Panasonic CT32SL14J with component. Thought it was an HD CRT earlier, but not one, thankfully. And a Sony KV 20TS32.
And they should be decent, you know, as long as they they do have.
Can you even like remember these numbers a lot of times?
The what?
Can you even remember a lot of these numbers most of the time?
Some of them, if they're, you know, like I know what a KV is for sure because that's Sony's basically go-to line. I mean, that's a really good CRT. As far as the Panasonic, I don't really have a lot of experience with Panasonic CRTs, but when you get in a lot of those shadow mask companies, they were using, they didn't even make their own tubes. They all got like the same tubes sourced from certain tube manufacturers. So there's still a lot out there that have good CRTs, you know, that, but those are probably fine. I'm sure if they're, you know, if they're 4x3 and if they work and have good geometry and if they have component inputs on them, then that's even a bonus because you can easily either use, you know, the game cables we were talking about from, you know, the component cables or some type of converter.
Yeah.
The easiest way. I know a lot of people like to go in and RGB mod CRTs, but unless you really just want to, you know, it's almost just as easy to just get those component transcoders and cost less money almost to just get that than even
right
sit there and spend all the time RGB modding your CRT, the consumer one. But yeah, I mean, like I said, if they're the most important thing now is they work, you know. Especially consumer. I still feel that a lot of consumer CRTs, unless there's something special, you're still better off nowadays trying to just replace it as opposed to troubleshoot problems and repair it. We're still at the era with a lot of where you still can just go on, like I said, I go on my local Facebook marketplace and find tons of Trinitrons and Toshibas and even JVCs, and usually they're $50 or less, you know. Anybody's asking for money for them. I mean, I was even, because I got somebody that one of the guys actually did a super chat earlier, Pat, and he was talking to me about getting a consumer CRT. So I've been looking through my area, and this week I found a JVC D series that was a 32-inch, and that was $50. I didn't go buy it, but that was there. And then I also found somebody that was giving away a free Toshiba that was the A series, that's the curved glass, and it was a 36-inch. That was about the biggest one. And it had one of those built-in, you know, silver entertainment centers to go with it because it's so big. But I was not
Man,
getting that. Because people
I
still
almost I've got, like, I don't check it very often, but I've got, you know, my neighborhood, or I guess my area has you know, that Nextdoor website. It's like Facebook for like the local neighborhoods or whatever.
Yeah. I got those. There's, you know, when I was in, I'll tell you
once in a while, I check for CRTs there, even though I've never actually gotten one. And I always wonder, why did I look this up? Because now I want to go get it. But one time I almost got one, and it was a 32-inch, but it only had S video. I would have gotten it now though, because like at the time I just didn't have anywhere to put it. But then I got this like really nice old TV cabinet that it would have been perfect for. And maybe it could have even been RGB modded. I don't know. But yeah, it would have been great. But it was bigger than I realized too from the picture, because the lady was just like, well, I put it out on the porch. And I'm like, oh. And then I looked at it, I'm like, oh, well, first of all, I didn't think it was that big, and I didn't bring any help. And second of all, I probably don't have room for one that big, and there's no components. So I was like, maybe not, even though I really kind of wanted to. Then I sent her another message, and I said, please don't throw it away, because retro gamers really, really need these. And she says, yes, I know. That's why I'm not throwing it away.
There's a massive.
Whoa.
Yeah, there
Well,
was.
hold on. First there was a Warren Hokie
Right.
donation. Let me read that first. Saying, play your childhood systems or preserve them. I mean, what I have that is my original, I play it. I mean, you know, I'm not overly worried about, especially the cartridge systems. I'm not really overly worried about use degrading their life. Except in a lot of cases, they're not the ones I use now, because, like, for example, my Super Nintendo, right now I use a modded Mini primarily, but I use my original some and show production, especially if I'm capturing like composite or S video or something like that. I use my original GameCube. My original PS2 doesn't really read discs anymore. I don't have my original NES, but I kind of took a stance of I had my cousin's NES, and then the NES that I rebought like in the late 90s. And I decided to keep my cousin's stock, but get the Ultra HDMI in the one that I bought back in the day, just because my cousin's is kind of like my childhood system in a way, because I did play on it. But I did eventually put a blinking light win in it.
I'm playing this on my childhood Genesis.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it. If you have your original systems, I mean,
I beat Shadow Dancer on the same system I beat it on as a kid.
I mean,
not
good,
the same copy of the game, but it was the same.
What good is that system doing? Being just preserved as opposed to being played on. Like, you may as well play on it like as long as it's going to work, because just the natural passage of time is also technically degrading it in some way. So enjoy it while you can, I say. And then there was a $50 super chat from
thank you,
Xenos Paradox. Wow, thank you very much. Saying, big fan of MLiG for several years. Steve, should I finally be brave and recap my 20L5 using a cap kit from Save on Pat, or maybe try to find someone do it for me? Wonder if anyone in the Houston area can help me out. My unit powers on, but no picture.
Well, unfortunately, that's not the monitor you probably want to try to just jump into yourself if you have no experience whatsoever.
Yeah,
because
I would
obviously
imagine so.
In there going on, and that one is really really compact. And I don't want the thing about Save on Pat's kit on that monitor is it might help because he also has a couple of regulators that he has in that kit, that if you are having trouble or you're having some problem, it's worth trying. Especially if you're not getting a picture. It's not, I mean, if you have the skills, I'd say go for it. But if you don't, I mean, it'd be better trying to find somebody to do it. I don't know anybody in Texas personally who works on CRTs. Unfortunately, you're like in the middle land where it's like between me and Save on Pat, so you have to try to get it. But I would not try to do that with, unless you're pretty skilled at soldering. That one, two things about that one is there's a lot of boards, a lot of connections, a lot of cables in there. It's not, I mean, it can be overwhelming. Again, if you're not used to it, because the other CRTs are kind of easier to service than the 2005. But
yeah, I mean that's one of the most sought after ones. So I mean, you really don't want to screw it up. Is just sort of a first experiment.
Yeah, the circuit board on there can be you could easily damage it with the wrong equipment and damage something on there and just basically ruin the whole darn thing. And you don't want to do that. So I would
maybe cut your teeth on
get somebody
on like a consumer CRT or something first.
Yeah, you definitely, if you're going to end up doing it yourself, you're going to need to get some skills. And you could do it on CRTs or anything.
Skills.
Just soldering skills. So you got just how to remove components safely without damaging boards, pretty much. That's it.
Yeah. But certainly your channel is a great resource for people who are curious about getting into it. But definitely does not sound like, I mean, obviously from just watching your videos, though, you're not going to walk away from it with the skills to just do it yourself. You still need experience, and you probably still need to ramp it up on simpler monitors or TVs first.
Yeah, you shouldn't definitely shouldn't just try to jump into that on a complicated monitor like that. There's a lot of easier CRTs to jump into, and I would definitely, but it might be worth, you may find somebody locally in Texas. Texas is big. There's a lot of, there's probably somebody there. There's a lot, maybe, that's what I'd recommend. Do try to find somebody else to do it, or if you're stuck doing it yourself, practice.
Yeah. There was $2 from Wade Simmons asking JVC AV30W or Sony KV24F V300.
Yes, another.
I'm assuming that Steve is the only person who those numbers mean anything to that are in this chat.
It says that people have made
them.
Yeah,
my life now is determining what model numbers are for CRTs. Those two, I saw that question and I Googled pictures of those CRTs. They both, if I'm not mistaken, appear to be flat screen, but 4x3 component, maybe level CRTs. All things being equal, and if they're both flat like that, I would go with the Trinitron screen off the two of those. So that would be the KV 200 or 24 FB 300. That's it.
And then there was $5 from Joseph Bergeron.
Bergeron.
Bergeron. Okay.
I'm guessing.
Saying my PVM 14 M4U buttons don't always work right away. The external sync button is the worst. I often have to hold it down or spam to get it to register. Coury, isn't that the one that your front panel buttons didn't work?
I had a problem with it, and that's what Steve fixed at RetroCreate for me.
Yeah. I don't know if it was that same model, but it was similar, I think.
I think it was, or it was a 1350. No, that was the one.
I think it was the MD version of that same one.
The MDU, yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's like the M isn't the 14 M4U. That's 800 line, I think, and the one I had is 600.
Cool. But the buttons, I'm sure that it's probably just the thing with that button board, and just like so, Coury had some problems where his was just not even responding, and it was funny because we were sitting there with so many people, they're like, what makes you think that? Somebody was like, what makes you think it's just going to be this button board? There's not even any components on it. And I was like, well, I guess I don't know. Thanks for.
Well, it's funny because like Coury hadn't mentioned it to you before you came, but you just happened to have it with you.
No,
Well,
I went and got it. I mentioned it. Yeah, I mentioned it previously.
To me, I brought the part. So anyway, you'll need to probably get a new button board, and I guarantee you, there's been one on eBay for a while for like $40. But if you want to send Save on Pat an email, I bet you there's a good chance he has that button board. You'll just have to take the PVM all the way apart to get the button board out of it.
Let me see if I can.
That's the only.
Is that a pretty common thing to go bad, or is there possibly something flaky with that particular model that it just happened to be Coury's and this other one?
The only thing it could be, if something's wrong, it's there's a couple of cables that are connecting that board to the main board. Maybe those became dislodged. So you could open up and first look, see if that's dislodged at all. And if that's partially dislodged, that could be why half the buttons aren't working. But other than that, my guess is it's either over time, somehow some of them got cold solder joints on them, or something's gone bad. Actually, I threw that board in my scrap pile, Coury, and I've not touched it since. So I didn't even test to see if I could fix it. Yeah. It literally got packed up in my scrap pile, but it would be much easier than troubleshooting the board. I guarantee you Pat will probably sell it, and I think the one on eBay was like $40. But you can get the same.
Oh, you got to go in 60 frames now.
Yeah, I messed around with the settings just because
What causes it to do that?
I don't know.
Anyway, sorry.
But yeah, that's what I guess that's kind of. I can't even remember what we were talking about there for a second.
We were talking about the front board going bad.
But you can get, what I was going to say is you can get a board for like any type of almost PVM that's similar to that, and it will work with it if it's got the buttons. So you don't have to be a 14M4. It could be a 14M2. It could be an Olympus OEV 2 or 203 or 1954 or 1953. Those are all the same part numbers for those. So you do have a wide range of part numbers that you get. That's why it should be a pretty common part. And once you change it, your buttons will work perfectly. Probably.
I see Dad72 in the chat asking if anyone tried a Retron 5 on a CRT with a digital analog converter. I think it may help with the lag. Might help less than you think. I mean, obviously with HD TVs, you can have a game mode that reduces the lag to the theoretical minimum that TV might have. But when you're already sending an HD TV a progressive image, like you would be getting out of a Retron 5, usually it's not going to have like, even if like say the native resolution of the TV is 1080p or 4K, you're sending it say 720p from the Retron 5. It's still, in my experience, any progressive resolution on an HD TV or 4K TV tends to have the same amount of lag. Where you really get lag is with 240p or 480i, because it's deinterlacing 480i and it's mistaking 240p for 480i, and it's adding deinterlacing. So I just today, someone who all they seemed to care about was, oh my gosh, I've got lag. I bought real Super Nintendo and Genesis carts. I've got lag. And, I responded saying, well, there's a lot of solutions you could go for. This was actually a response to the original FrameMeister video, which, I was like, he's like, would a FrameMeister fix my problem? And I'm like, don't get a FrameMeister because they're discontinued and very expensive now. And there's actually, other devices that, if your main concern is lag, have even less lag than a FrameMeister. There's the OSSC and the RetroTech, and I said, but OSSC sounds like it might be a little more complicated than what you're looking for. If you just want to work but have less lag, like you can use the cables that come with your system with the RetroTech. So like I say, even if you converted it, the Retron for a CRT, you would probably save a little lag, but not as much as you might think. Most of that lag is just emulation lag that's built into it, unfortunately. But the emulation lag on it does vary from system to system, so I found to be pretty bad on Super Nintendo and GBA, but like other stuff, depending on your tolerance for lag, might be more tolerable. There was $5 from Ender2999. Thank you.
Thank you.
Saying, hey Steve, do you know if the capacitor kit for the 20M2U/20M4U is the same for 14-inch models, 14M2U or 14M4U? Looking to do a cap replacement.
Yeah, you're gonna be there's like 95 to 97% identical caps on those monitors. And anything that you're gonna be replacing for like a cap kit, they're gonna be the same on those like M2, M4s, and even 14 to 20 inch. Now some BVMs and other monitors will be a little bit different, but most of the time a corresponding 14-inch monitor will have the same caps as like a 20-inch one. So yeah, that specific one is the same. And if you're looking for a cap kit and you don't specifically want, you want to do your own cap build out, there's a great resource on Reddit that has all the service manuals, nearly all of them, for professional monitors in one spot. And every one of those things has the complete component list in the back. So if you really if you wanted to eventually go in and just start repairing it, you can literally go in there and get all the parts listed right there. If you want to make your own cap kit. I do make cap kits sometimes, and I just put my email address in the chat a little bit ago. If somebody wants to email me cap kit questions. But yeah, they're the same.
Our good friend John Linneman just got, I'm not sure exactly what model it was, but he just got a BVM, and he was kind of dropping in our little Discord chat, some live impressions of testing it out for the first time, and he was just like, oh my gosh, like they totally take the safety rails off, because they just straight up let you push some of the service menu values like way beyond what is safe to do.
Yes, you can blow up your BVM or PVM sometimes. Joke, like I was reading, and if you adjust the wrong thing on it, anything, at first, if it says frequency on the adjustment potentiometer or the adjustment, it's generally best to not mess with it if it says something frequency. Because for some reason that voltage on the frequency lines is tied into a lot of important components in a CRT, and you end up spinning that thing and you can blow an IC or just like, so yeah.
There was a I see that Henry Clark was mentioning his super chat earlier. I think we missed it.
Oh, did we miss it?
Any repaired 14 and 20-inch PVMs for sale up soon. We'll drive for the right deal.
No, I've got most of my PVM sales. I've been trying to even. I can't get like a great number of. I guess what is it? Inventory. I can't keep inventory in, and most of the time, I've got people now that are kind of on waiting lists, for a lot of
Wow.
things. So, because I mean, I just don't have as many as it would be nice to have PVM to offer everybody. But it's just not like that. And of course, though, it is better if you're driving in. My best, like the best thing is if you really want a PVM, and I don't try to push this, but the biggest thing to do is to get in direct contact with me, and that's the best way is through the Patreon app, even if it's just like $1 contribution. That's just really the way that I can really get through a lot of messages, and if that's how I keep like lists of people.
Because it does get overwhelming. Just like when you have your email like out there. I mean, we get questions all the time, and sometimes they're just like really in depth, and it's very difficult to respond to everything.
Yeah, and then like a really long drawn out thing, and you're like, oh, I'll answer that later, and then you just unfortunately forget. But
Yeah.
And it's nothing. But again, if you're in like a real serious situation where you want to get one, my best advice is to do it like that. And unfortunately, it's not going to be like a credible deal. Most of the time, what I do is try to find a 14-inch CRT that's decently priced around market value, and then I service it. And then then you're just looking at buying it for whatever you would buy it for, plus my services, and then you come get it. And I mean, the best deals for like a 14-inch PVM right now are generally, if you find them on eBay or something, it's going to be about $250 to $350 just for the monitor. That's a good price on there if you find one, and then you send it to me, and then I service it, and then you either pick it up or whatever. But that's pretty much the best way. Or like I said, get on my list. And then that's what I do for you. And then instead of you doing all that, I just do it and then tell you when it's ready. Because I've got somebody else now. This one, you can barely see. I don't think you can actually see a picture here. But there's a 14L2 up here that's getting a tube replacement. And that's somebody's been on a waiting list for it. I was going to try to sell it through a website, but again, it's too sporadic. And I just don't have a constant, steady number of them in.
Coury, there was a $1 donation from Bag of Schmidt, but I don't think it's in. It's in the Google chat.
Yep. Says, have you ever heard of a PVM pass-through output not working? I've never got my 14L5 to do it. Have any of you played? Also, have any of you played the Tony Hawk remake yet? On that note, really quick, I have not got it yet. I really, really want to get it. I'm a big fan of. The third one's probably my favorite. But I am eagerly anticipating playing the HD version of 1 and 2.
John was just gushing about it.
Yeah, I mean
I didn't even know it exists. I mean, I'm not into Tony Hawk, but
you might like it more than you realize. It's not just like a skateboarding game. It's like there's more to it.
I've never really been to like tricks though, like even in like Wave Race or anything like that. But anyway, I wasn't even aware that was coming up until John started, being like, oh man, this is really good. But yeah, what was the other question? I think that was more for Steve. Or the output not working. I feel like I feel like I may have had a situation where that didn't work correctly, but I can't remember what would have led to that.
Yeah, I mean, if there's something wrong with that, then there might be an issue on the actual output board itself. And if it's an L series, check and see if the other outputs work on like composite or S-video, and maybe even if you have one of the cards that you can insert, like the 129X, test its outputs and single it down. See if it's just a single output or if it's every output. And that's kind of weird. It's got to be something either in the settings or something in the monitor itself that's not working to get all the outputs out. But if you can narrow it down where it's just one output, it's most likely a cold solder joint on that connector or some kind of component on that actual input board is failed and not working. So that's how I would troubleshoot it, though. Try it on the different outputs and see if it's doing on all the outputs. And if it is, then something internal is going on. But if it's just one, then you know something's going on with that single output.
Yeah. Well, you know, if you remember when you were at my house, I was having trouble with S video on one specific monitor, and it was so interesting because S video colors were like distorted on one monitor, but the output was still working to the next monitor.
Yeah, like the one.
Since then, though, like the S video just doesn't seem to work on at all, and the pass-through isn't working either. So I bypassed that one monitor for S video, but everything else on it works fine. But yeah, so I mean, those things can have problems. There was also $5 from Vanessaria saying, "Steve, thank you again for doing that recent cap kit buying guide video."
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for the awesome write-up. I wanted to say thank you, Vanessaria, for that awesome write-up on it. Anyway, she did a good one on the website, Retro RGB.
Yeah, I saw it posted there too.
Yeah, I was Bob sent me an email. I made a first video about cap kits, which was kind of vague on things because I didn't want to open a big. I thought maybe it would ruffle more people up than it did, and it didn't really. Nobody really got upset about it because you never can tell. People can get kind of particular when you get into specifics.
Yeah.
But I asked some of my friends, you know, who've also. I mean, there are some people that work on CRTs that I talked to. I'm like, what's your opinion on it? And I did get other people's opinions that work on CRTs to see what they thought. And we were all kind of on the same page and consistent thoughts on what we would do with them. So yeah, if you're looking for cap kits, or I mean, if you're looking to replace caps, it can be kind of overwhelming, but you know, just take some steps and right one.
I'm dying. Dave Bladegun with $1.99 says, "My wife hates CRTs. She also hates me. Any tips? Is there a connection between the two? Because if so, I can relate in some ways."
Because Dave's he's a Patreon member, and I fixed a bunch of CRTs for him. I've actually got 2 in here of his still. Coury, do you remember the really crazy looking old NEC like wood box? Did I show you that one?
You didn't.
It was. Oh, there's a huge one here that's like it's really old school from the 80s, and it's NEC, and it's in a wood crate style, like wooden painted black box. And if you open it up, the entire inside of it is lined in like beautiful copper, like sheets of copper. And so that one's got to get redone, but he's brought a bunch of them, so yeah. There's no tips. Tell Dave knows she's married to him. He's, you know, she's not gonna for life. No, she's married to the CRTs, right?
No one here other than Sandy to dispute anything about my CRTs. You know, I've got a photo of her after sometime I think in the first week I had her when she was a puppy, staring at her reflection in the glass of Coury's 20 M2U MDU before I brought it to him in a few weeks after that. So, you know, I think Sandy's cool with CRTs.
Steve, with you sitting behind that desk and everything right now, has anyone ever told you that you kind of look like, or has anyone ever said that they remind you of Super Dave Osborne? You ever gotten that before?
Super Dave Osborne?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I
So like in the past, I've always gotten the Chris Jericho stuff. So do you know who he is?
Yeah, he is a wrestler, right?
I used to um, I used to actually go to wrestling in Nashville sometimes with my friend who's a bank president. He'd have suite tickets, and no one would want to go to wrestling. Like, I was like, we watched it growing up together, like we grew up together. Yeah, so I would go there and get confused. Like people are like, "What's Chris Jericho doing walking around backstage in the concourse?" It'd be like, "Ah."
I just get I sound like Tom Hanks, and then sometimes people also say leave comments saying, "Oh, he looks like whatever that guy's name from The Office is."
Oh man. So Super Dave, that's Funkhauser from Larry David. What's that show? Curb Your Enthusiasm. That guy actually passed away last year. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Super Dave.
Yeah, Super Dave.
Yeah.
Played that.
I never saw that, but for me
hilarious.
it was when he was Super Dave, he'd always do these big elaborate stunts, but they'd always mess up in some way.
Yeah.
Kind of like my how good I am at NHL '94. I thought I'd be in here doing a good job, but
there's some scary burly UFC fighter that people say I look like too, and I was like, oh man, that guy kind of looks scary. I can't remember his name.
There's Jake Hughes in the chat saying, question for Steve regarding consumer says, would it be possible to take a curved tube from an XBR88 and put into a FV310? Would have to modify the bezel and stuff, but could it work technically?
I don't know. The problem is going to be getting the right amount of drive into the yoke, because it's really hard to piece together a tube and a yoke with a chassis if they weren't originally designed, which just means the main board and then the deflection yoke. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think that, you'd pretty much just be doing it as an experiment and seeing if it worked. That
story that Jose told in Analog Frontiers Part 2 about how he found I don't remember what model of TV he was putting it into, but he found a sharp tube and he put it into something else and it worked. But like you said before, a lot of Sony manufactured their own screens, but a lot of these other companies were just getting their tubes from all the same place, so it's entirely possible they can be compatible.
Yeah, see, there's a big amount of arcade chassis that are compatible with tubes from CRTs, and there are databases online for that, but there are still ones that are being found where something's compatible with an arcade machine. But those are generally all the same type of tubes. It's not going from a flat to a curved.
I thought I just tied it up, but I guess not. Oh, come on.
When I saw EA Sports come up, when you thought
it was gonna be, you think it was gonna be you thought it would be football?
I thought it was gonna be, what was it, Madden 92? Is that the one?
92, yeah. It's the only version of Madden I need in my life.
I thought that's what it was gonna be for sure. I didn't know you were into the hockey one.
Yeah, well, NHL 94 is the best. It's the best one. I have it on the Sega CD too.
Yeah, that's the definitive version.
Yeah.
Sega CD.
In what was it NHL 2014? They had a version of this that used the new graphics, but plays in the same way. It's like an overhead. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's as good or not.
That hockey, this hockey game, on the CD version, I think you could do some pretty crazy season stuff on them.
I'm not sure. I haven't really played. Oh, get in! He is right in there.
There was $2 from Gaming Blows saying, "You got Mutant League? Get that going."
I don't. It's kind of expensive now too.
Yeah, those are collectors right there. Leagues.
I mean, I'm not like a big sports game fan, but I definitely have some good memories playing NHL. Like specifically the first NHL, and then this one, and of course Madden '92. Madden '92. Steve, I talk about all the time. I love playing Madden '92 because of the when somebody gets injured and the ambulance comes out and it like runs over all the players.
So do you have a team you always like a preferred on Madden '92?
Well, I mean, another reason Madden '92. I just scored on myself. Well, I mean, Madden '92 is also good because, like, you know, I'm playing Buffalo Sabres. I grew up outside Buffalo, so
okay,
it's always
so
like so as a Bills fan at that time in my life, and that's like when the Bills were the best, basically in like the early '90s, and you know, '92 was probably the best. So that's another reason why it's the only version I need, because the Bills are really good in it.
Yeah, Bills were incredible for a while.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't really watch much sports these days. I did recently watch that The Last Dance documentary.
Oh yeah.
Did you watch that about the Chicago Bulls?
I actually didn't. I feel bad. Like ever since this all is, like I used to kind of be, you know, I used to follow sports a little bit, but then after what's just kind of happened recently and not watching it, and now I just don't know if I'll go back to watching it. Just because I do so much other stuff in my time, it's hard to just sit.
Believe me, I get that. Like I haven't watched sports live in years.
Well, like here in Nashville, we've got the Predators and the Titans, and like my mom and my stepdad are hardcore into the Predators, so they go to all these games and they'll invite us to go. And I mean, I don't want to sound like a prude, but I go there and I feel like I'm like some old man who's walked into this crazy arena. It's turned into like the Colosseum of Rome, where these hockey games, it's like, their chants are literally like "You suck, you suck." And it's all, and everybody's doing it, and it's like that's their chants. It's like, and then it's just funny. You know, people throwing catfish. And he's like super into it, and then I'm just like, oh man, it's not. I felt like spoiled because I was able to go to him, but then it's just like I'd rather. Again, I get stuck there, and after the first period, I'm like, well, that was fun. Can I go do something else now? I mean, like, so yeah. I mean, they went to it a lot. I went to like a game 7 with them 2 years ago, where the Predators were in the playoffs, game 7, trying to go to the Stanley Cup Finals or something. I can't remember what the exact implications were, but they lost the game, and that's what always happens too. It seems like every game I go to, they get their butt whipped. But yeah, so that's, you know, the sports are kind of big around here, but
oh, get in there. I mean, great to go to overtime, but that's not going to happen, I don't think. No.
Oh.
Well, it was an impromptu, fun game to play, I guess.
Game.
Any last minute questions from the chat? I think we're going to wrap it up.
I'm sure the questions could go until 6 a.m. if we let them.
That's very true.
That's probably when Steve wants to be waking up.
Yeah, that coffee helps me. No, fall asleep.
But yeah, I know when you posted about these, you're doing these PVMs on. I saw in the Facebook group the what is it, the professional and consumer CRTs or something like that. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
Monitors. A lot of you posted a picture of people are saying like, oh, the geometry looks really good, and it's like it really wasn't at all. Considering what you've done to them, it looks a lot better.
I told you that yeah, sometimes you get in there and originally I had done some things to it and I turned it on and the geometry looked worse than when I'd started with, and then I had to go back and undo and change some things around. But yeah, it's 'cause that's what I was like, oh man, this geometry. I mean, your geometry honestly on it was pretty good to begin with. Everything could use a little bit of tweaking usually. Even these machines originally did get serviced regularly.
Right.
They had to be calibrated periodically. So it's a good thing to get them checked out and make sure they keep going. I think those two will be good for a long time.
Yeah,
there was $5 from Ben Brody saying, "I don't know what it is, but when the Predators score, I don't know what it is when the Predators score, but I like it, I love it, and I want some more."
Yeah. So get this. That's the thing about Nashville sports is they get one thing and then they never change it. So the Predators, their first year, which was like 1998, I think, or 96, 90, somewhere around there, late 90s, they get Tim McGraw to get on there and sing this terrible song that song he's got, I like it, I love it, I want some more of it.
Okay.
So every time they score, they play that song, and they always have in the Predators arena, and it says, I don't know what it is about that Predator scoring, but I like it. I love it. I want it. Loving it. I'm like, this is terrible. Can we get a new one? Can we get a new chant?
There was $5 from Pixel Phoenix saying, "Thank you, Coury, Try, and Steve. You all taught and inspired me so much over the years. I appreciate you all." Well, we appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody has any other questions. Definitely feel to come out and if you have CRT questions, you can come ask me. Either leave a comment on something or whatever.
Smoke Monster. Smoke Monster says, I feel like I'd agree with Steve on pretty much anything. On pretty much everything.
And cynical sometimes, but
so
it's all good fun.
Is there any PVMs that you've kept for yourself that you use?
Oh yeah, so I keep I kind of collect 14-inchers. So I've got just about all the good 14-inch PVMs and or not PVMs. I collect PVMs. So I've got an A series, a D series, a couple of them, and then the L5 14-inch. But I don't know, it's hard for me to really keep one for too long. I'm looking at so many, and I like last time when you came in here and saw it, I told you I've got 40 to 50 CRTs in here right now. My shop. So is
that where everything is? I mean, do you keep the ones that are yours in the house someplace? Probably.
Everything's in my shop. Actually, I don't keep PVMs or BVMs in my house inside.
Okay.
They're here, and inside it's inside. I've got bigger CRTs where I've got a 27 inch that are RGB modded, an old Sony, and but no, for the most part, I keep them out here. And see, I like to just constantly be changing them, and looking at, I want to use this one for a little bit, so I just switch forth, and
if you got since you've got them coming in and out, why not keep it fresh, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's if I want one, somehow they show up and somebody wants to serve, so I've got it. The best chance I get to borrow it for a couple weeks, right? Good, and I don't have it, but yeah, so that's my favorite. I really do. It's funny because people talk to me about, I can't believe you play on such a small screen, and then at the same time they'll sit down and watch a whole Netflix movie on their phone.
Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, the little ones are nice if you're up at a desk,
3.5 to 5 feet away from a 14-inch that's beautiful CRT that's right there,
Yeah,
the perfect. It's going to look just as good as anything else.
they're
Right.
sharper and usually better geometry too. So
Yeah, I mean,
So
like when you fix that 14, it's like I was almost tempted to like make that my main one just because it's like right here, and it is so crisp for that
Yeah.
size.
well, and it's got such the tube's got 6,000 hours on it, which is pretty much all. I mean, as close as you're going to get to new, I think, anymore. It's really hard to get them less than that in donor shape, you know.
Right. So that came out of a BVM.
It came out of a
And-
BVM. It came out of a BVM A series, which is the one that is the last BVM made, and is the one with the very limited analog cards. So if you
so
don't have the
it's served better in a 14L5 then.
yeah, because he's
Basically.
gonna and I took his tube that had the screen burn and put it back in the A series that I have, so at least there's a tube in there and it still works. It's just it's got his old tube in it in case I need it. See, I'll keep it because I think that the flybacks also are like the same on those as like the D series. So if the flybacks go bad on a D series, then it'll be good to have those.
There was $5 from Sean Rios saying, thank you all for the great content. You inspired me to get my first PVM 2 weeks ago, an Olympus OEV 203. Absolutely love it. You know, those, you know, which are the Sony M2 tubes. I mean, they're such a great, well-rounded model. You know, I mean, yeah, you can get like the crazier, you know, 20L5 and stuff like that, but the M2 and the OEV 203, like they, you know, what I love about them is that they've got 2 RGB inputs that you can all, you know, and obviously you can set one as component. So you don't need an extra card to get component and RGB run to the same PVM. So that is a great starter model. And, you know, at least as of a few years ago, they were pretty common if you would go looking at like medical equipment reseller warehouses. I don't know if it's as easy to come by that anymore, but
a lot of those up. But that's I'm glad you brought that up because that is the best place to start if you can to get a CRT that's a PVM and you want one. It's best to go with either the M series or those Olympus OEVs that are the two that you can either get a 142 or a 143 and a 202 or a 203. And then at the Sony's, the M series and then the 50s. So it's like the 1953s, MDs, 1954 Qs. They're almost identical to the M series. And both of those, I think those are the best because they're very good workhorses. They can pretty much take any type of sync you throw at them. They don't have a lot of problems generally. They last a long time. And they're easy to adjust like through the sub menu. And they just, those are really the good ones that people should consider when they're starting off just getting a CRT.
Yeah, because you're going to pay a lot of money to get one that does 480p. So you might want to forget that for starters.
Unless you just want to go for it and just be done with it.
Just go for it and be done. Like, you know, there was that one guy from earlier who just got his 14L5, said the hype is real. And you know what? That is a fantastic place to start. So, you know, if you're ready to go all in, but you know, if you're just starting out, you know, those modders are good, you know, the medical versions or otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, I just think about your channel, Steve, and the way that apparently, like, from my point of view, like you are like the person to go to for most of the stuff at this point. I mean, Pat has been doing it for a long time, and he like puts his kits up and everything and resells stuff. But you're like a much more public facing person than he is. So,
yeah,
like,
he definitely doesn't want to like be on camera or anything.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't blame him. I mean, he's doing just fine. Wait, what was that?
But no, I just laughed that he's even still like got a passion and want to do it.
Yeah.
At this point, because I mean, that's a good thing, and that's, I mean, I kind of laugh, and I appreciate you saying that, Coury, because that's kind of was what I had hoped maybe would happen for a couple years of doing this. I never really thought it would, because you kind of, but I've always had kind of like a marathon view of all this, that if people really did like CRTs, there would need to be somebody that would tell them how to do stuff. And I've talked to other people that do know people who know, like they have business relationships with people who still do know how to work on CRTs, and they are completely like anti-sharing any of their knowledge, which is kind of weird.
It is
But
really
again,
weird.
these are people that are in their, most of them are again in their 70s and 80s, and are just like, when I'm done, I'm done. I don't care to be done with, So, I'll keep going on it though. I mean, we didn't talk much about that, but that's hopefully the way things keep going. And if I can keep getting monitors in, I'll keep going, fixing them and making, videotaping it.
Yeah.
So,
Chris in the chat is saying Pat is a shrewd businessman, and I mean, he's been doing it long enough, and he's like, I mean, he's clearly doing pretty all right. I think probably building up just like that.
Yeah,
that's that retirement money. He's been retired he's like making use of his expertise like long after, and probably making way more money he was making at his regular job.
Well, I have to laugh because I talk to people again behind the scenes that know Pat and have done business with him for years, and I kind of like talking to him. He told me that Pat really liked to go to Vegas and gamble, and so he would always be using his CRT stuff to build up his gambling fund to go blow a bunch of money in Vegas. But now he can't. I don't know if he can do that, but it's just kind of funny, yeah, because you don't get as much from Pat because he's never really been on camera or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Great guy and knows way more. I'll be completely honest with you. He knows way more about these machines than I do, and he probably helped design certain things on them.
Mm-hmm.
He's an engineer, but before he worked for Sony, he worked for B&K, which made the testing machines and the rejuvenators for CRTs. And he was a salesman and like engineer for them. So he's been in the CRT game and business his whole career,
Yeah.
Wow.
And been on pretty much the front lines of it.
Yeah. Like just like knows them better than probably even some of the people that made them.
Yeah, like I mean, just anybody now, because that's the thing is this technology is so it's very precise, even though it's analog. It takes a lot of precise things, and that's exactly why I don't think that it will be economical for people to go back into making them. They won't be able to make a high quality one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people saying like, "Oh, do you ever think that they'll make new ones?" And it's like,
there's actually a
like
CRT still, but that's again outside of the United States. And again, it's secondhand. It's all being rebuilt. And if they are going to build it, it's going to be like that last generation of cassette tape players. They still make them, but they're not that high quality. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like they make them, but they just don't sound as good as an old one if you got it fixed.
Yeah.
So that's probably the best we'll get. If somebody makes tubes or something, that would be nice, but I don't think it's going to be as good as BVMs or PVMs.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
I saw Smoke Monster a bit ago say he got a 20L2 from a medical warehouse's pallet last year for $90. So you can, sometimes those places don't know what they've got, or they're just not interested in pricing them, in such a way where they'll get the right buyer. They just want to move them, I think, so.
I mean, yeah. Believe it or not, there was a friend of mine in this area found a PVM like on a cart, like at a
Yeah.
garage sale.
Oh wow.
Really?
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, you could
whole-
be surprised where they come from, but
That
I
was
mean,
just this summer. So, I mean,
I've gotten several PVMs, and yours as well from
yeah.
a couple of medical warehouses in North Carolina. So I mean, if they're in North Carolina, they've got to be all over the place. I mean,
I mean, there's
the last load of the really great BVMs I got, and that includes the BVMs with the tubes that I switched out. That was 6 monitors and 3 flight cases, and so 3 of them were BVMDs, 24s. One didn't work it's got a bad tube in it, but the other 2 were good, and then the D20s, and that came because someone that I know here locally sent out and emailed everybody they could think of in the state, from news stations to post-production houses, video production houses, to editing studios. And he sent out emails to all these people. And this one was somebody, they saw the email and they didn't respond till 1 year later. And he wasn't even looking for them. So he, sent the information to me, and I went and bought them all. But that was just like, so you don't ever know, the day you think that you're ready to give up or you're not finding what exactly you're looking for, could be, the day after that, you could end up with 10 of them. Somebody finally answers something, and you just got to be, I've learned that once those things come up, it's best to just, hey, go in there and get them all.
Yeah.
Because then
no, I mean, and even if you have a lot, even for like people like Trot and I, like we have some, but it's becomes very hard to turn them down if you like run into a situation where it's like, oh, I have one.
Gotta have some backups.
Yeah, well, I mean, just like I was able to, like, one of the ones that you got from that at the medical warehouse, like I had an extra one, like it was like a 20-inch. I ended up giving it to 8-Bit Duke because he helped us shoot so much stuff with for Analog Frontiers and stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, you just never know
They're
when
great.
you might. What's that?
You got the value. They're great. I mean, you don't want, like, if they're, especially if they work, you don't want to. You just want to go get them and hold on to them somehow, or if you can't do it yourself, it's like this guy. He sent me the information, and I owe him, like, he's got a 20L5 that he needs the button. The button's broken on it. So I've got a button here. Whenever he brings it in, I'll fix it for him for free. So, and so I pay like for at least some kind of a referral if something happens good like that. So there's always something you can do, even if you just find a listing and you're like, oh man, somebody told me they got CRTs. Well, somebody out there probably wants them.
Yeah.
There's but before I forget, there's a $2 donation from Zoom Dust. Thank you. Saying, is there a hidden service menu on D20F1U?
Yes, and you have to get into the menus, and it should say like service menu, and you have to actually put in a password to get into it. And
that sounds
that
possibly
sounds,
bad.
That sounds scary.
Yeah, it's a 4-digit pin, and there's a standard for that monitor, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. It's like 9999 or 11. It's in the service menu or manual. So go to that website, go to Reddit, or go to Google and type in CRT spec list, and it'll bring that spec list up. You can go directly to the monitor's service manual, and it will tell you what the code is to get into that exact 4 digits. You don't want to keep doing it. I did that one time and locked the thing up. It's like what numbers it was, and then it wouldn't. I had to pull the boards and reset the whole monitor to get it unlocked.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. There is a service menu, though. You have to get past that, and you can find some different adjustments you can make that aren't on the normal adjustment screen.
I've seen a few people from Europe chatting here lately. I suppose it's getting time for them waking up. And something that I would love to have from Europe, but will probably never happen, is a Bang & Olufsen TV. I just think they look so cool with like their stands and everything.
Yeah, those are awesome. I've never seen one of those in person. I've just seen awesome pictures.
No.
Like
what?
Like that awesome looking barbershop seat, or like that.
Oh yeah.
The stand on it, just
like I didn't realize until relatively recently that the stand was like a standard part of it, but they look so cool. I understand it's so easy to get one in Europe, but like here, like we just don't really have them.
No.
Well, I think that's gonna do it.
I think that will do it just plenty. I hope Steve doesn't try any risky CRT repairs while drowsy tomorrow.
Although we did just get 2 quick donations at the very end here. Let's go through them really quick. We got a $5 donation for Love of the Game, saying, "What do you think of the presentation monitors like the NEC XM and Mitsubishi Megaviews?"
Those are awesome.
I don't know anything about those.
Those are incredible if you can get them. I don't know about the Mitsubishi, whether it's multi-format, but the NEC is, and it's a larger monitor, generally 27 inches. They do have sync issues, but all in all, that's a great one. And so is the Mitsubishi. I just don't find those. I mean, those are super rare. Those were the original, like, great gaming monitors, were those NECs, even before people used the PVMs and BVMs, really. Bone Dork has a good video on that.
These people are going crazy here. So there's a $2 donation from Blake Romo saying, "Thoughts on RCA true flat TVs and flat CRTs, etc., etc."
I'm not familiar with the RCA line in particular, but like we've said before, like geometry issues tend to be more visible on flat CRTs. But in general, I like them, but the curve is more true to how the technology works.
I think it's something, if you're interested in it, you got to just go and test it and see if it looks good. If you like the way personally that it looks on that screen, then I think that you could get a great use out of something like that. But if you're just talking about, again, from a perspective of hardware, you're taking and trying to use an analog all this was made on curved screens to begin with, and then you're moving that to a flat display. So there's always going to be some kind of issue with that, kind of, on at least the analog end. Seems like. Getting some late time.
Yeah.
There was a $1 donation from Jay Christie saying, "I have a 32-inch Sony Trinitron that only has composite and S-Video. I'm surprised how good S-Video actually looks on it. So good that I don't even think I would even notice the difference with an RGB mod." I mean,
yeah, honestly, with consumer CRT TVs, I think that the jump from S-Video to component or RGB is very, very small. The only issue really are systems like, namely the Sega Genesis, that doesn't do S-Video. But speaking of which, I also see there's Oval Fast LX with $5. Thank you. Saying composite on consumer CRTs are making a comeback. They are free. That is all. And you know what? Composite on consumer CRTs, I mean, it really can be not that bad, and it's certainly a nostalgic look. But some of them handle it shockingly well, better than others.
Yeah, they're made. Yeah, there are some that are, and again, even hooking up composite to your Pro monitor, if you just have one of those already, looks amazing.
Yeah.
For composite.
And be sure to drink your Oval Fast LX. All right, I think that's gonna do it.
That'll do it for real.
Yeah, Steve, thanks for hanging out. It was a lot of fun.
This was a fun time.
Thanks for all the great questions tonight too.
Yeah, a lot of great questions. Thanks to everybody who donated and everybody who hung out along with us and watched me almost make it through Shadow Dancer 2. Although I didn't quite make it.
I'm just impressed you got through it once. So,
well, now I think you should play it on Backloggery tomorrow night. I bet you can beat it tomorrow night.
I'm not gonna do it tomorrow because me and Drum wants to play it too, but his hands haven't been so good lately. So,
I see.
But we're gonna play when he's up for it. We're gonna play it at the same time.
Oh, I see. Nice. All right, everybody. We will we'll see you next week. Have a good night.
Later.